There we go. I'm going to stream it to my stuff as well, YouTube and Twitter, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
thanks. No.
Go ahead, Mark. What?
It's pretty choppy. I was going to say the
Well, I
previous
stopped it so
episodes,
you could speak.
the city on the edge of foreclosure. The city on the edge of foreclosure and A Mutt Time are on the YouTube channel. So check it out. You can actually watch whole episodes.
Absolutely.
This is
full episodes.
yeah. This is the finale, the end of the trilogy.
Yeah.
All right, get that bit of business out of the way.
Captain's log. Start date: no Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Monday.
The second prize is towing the Consternation back to the nearest stalled base while Engineer Scotch attempts to repair her crippled engines. I've ordered complete radio silence in hopes that we can sneak past the Doomsday Machine without attracting.
Why does this thing look like a giant sperm with teeth? I'm just wondering.
That was definitely not my intention.
Sure.
Yeah.
Attention.
Okay, come on. Seriously.
Didn't he die on the planet? He had a red shirt on.
It looks like a giant fucking doobie.
Yeah.
It's Space Burrito.
Uh-oh.
You know, that's the thing about the original episode. It had that slow build up with the music, just like you've got.
Yes.
It's like today people don't like to watch it because they're like, get to the killing already.
Yeah.
Yes.
What the hell is going on up here, Mr. Spot? A planet eater, Doctor. We will attempt to return to your position, Captain. Don't move.
I don't think I can.
Now, who's doing your voices, Mark?
In that case, all of those are me.
Okay. Yeah. Looks like a lot of fun. I've not seen that version of the trailer before, I don't think.
Yeah, I just put that up. Like I said, the original trailer, I just did scenes to make the trailer for the Indiegogo. So all of those shots were redone when I got around to doing the actual movie. So that was, but it's fun. The sound designer sent me a rough cut of the first 15 minutes, and she's added these cool roars and stuff for the Doomsday Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I had specifically requested, because this time a lot of it's on the bridge, and so I have the captain's chair rotating around, and she's added these little squeaks every time.
Squeaky office chair.
We got some oil for this again, Mr. Spot.
But yeah,
space oil.
Where's Scotty?
That's the final bit. The guy finished composing the music, and so now I've got Martina, the sound designer, is making everything, because with animation, there's no sound at all until she makes it. So she does that, and then she'll mix all the dialogue and the music and stuff and make it sound like it's a real movie. That was the biggest thing when I did the last one, City on the Edge of Foreclosure. I had the same composer and sound designer. It was the first time I did that, and it was like, I'm just making this goofy puppet movie, but now it seems like it's real. It seems
Right.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's too much work for what it is, but I've had fun doing it, and I don't know if I'm definitely done with doing the Star Trek.
Well, since you've done that, they've done something similar called Upper Decks. I guess you've seen that. I mean, it's not Lower Decks. It's not really what you're doing, but it's animated, sort of takeoff on Star Trek, or
it's
I don't know if that's supposed to be.
I think it is Star Trek, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Star Trek. It's comedic, but yeah, I think
you think they did that because of the Orville?
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah.
I think there was a plan for a little while when streaming was booming, was how could we fill up the entire year with Star Trek stuff? Thanks, Cheapo. And so they were looking at, animation's cheaper, so they looked at a couple of animated shows. They had a plan to fill it up, but all that stuff has crashed. So now they're cutting back. But
14 people watching on a Monday. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Nice. Hi, everybody.
Howdy.
Yeah, it's kind of. I've only seen a little bit of the Orville, like a couple of episodes, and I've seen some shorts on YouTube and stuff like that.
I like
it's
Orville.
hilarious.
I
like it too.
Seasons,
Yeah,
but when it went to Hulu, they lost me.
Exactly.
I did watch it when it went to Hulu. It was a good show. It definitely felt more Star Trek than the new Star Trek felt like Star Trek.
That's exactly what I hear over and over again. It was like I can't remember was it Seth whatever his name is.
Seth
was a Star Trek. Yeah, he was a Star Trek fan and just made his own Star Trek. And it's like it feels more classic Star Trek than like Discovery and shit like that, which is really sad.
What it feels like is Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's
okay.
That's kind of the place that it's at, and I think it started off being more comedic than it eventually got kind of serious. But I really enjoyed it, and I've heard tell that it's coming back. But
I got a question for you, Mark.
What's that?
Star Trek's all about the future, right? But now is 60s Star Trek, the original, dated?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, well, there's the very last episode of the original series is about a woman who's furious and trying to get revenge on Captain Kirk because women aren't allowed to be captains of Starship.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
For as much as they like to say, oh, Star Trek was visionary with all this stuff. If you look at it, you had a woman who was a telephone operator and a woman who was a nurse.
They weren't really. You talk to smack about Uhura, man.
Well, it was innovative in the regards that it talked about the Vietnam War.
It sure did,
in a roundabout way.
But a lot of shows did that. We remember Star Trek, but
and racism.
You've been watching The Fugitive and things like Route 66. Those had a lot of shows dealing with what was going on.
If you want to see a lot of actors that was in the original Star Trek, watch The Fugitive, because it has multiple actors who were on Star Trek are in multiple episodes.
Mission Impossible is the same way because they were both done at Desi Lewis.
Well, Leonard Nimoy did Mission Impossible. He was a regular on there.
Yeah, he went there after Star Trek when Martin Landau quit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Although the older, like the 60s and early 70s sci-fi and stuff like that, I really have a soft spot for it because they like to play with the allegories so that they can talk about current events for them at the time,
right?
Through allegory of their own show. And
in the 70s, it was all about destroying the planet with pollution.
Yeah,
that's funny. Well, I mean, they still do that every now and again, but like the writing was just so much more crisp, and like more direct. They didn't really fuck around.
Oh yeah, if you want some good stories, the original Fugitive is solid 4 seasons of
Nice. Yeah, I really enjoyed The Fugitive. And Route 66 was
Twilight Zone.
But now don't, Mark, wouldn't you agree that they probably killed themselves in syndication by solving and killing the one-armed man in the last episode? Because that kind of killed.
I don't think you could end the show without wrapping that up.
Yeah, how do you do
I
it?
don't either, but I think that I think the producers at the time said we made a big mistake we should have never done that because we kind of killed ourselves for syndication. Of course, syndication at that time was kind of a newborn thing, and I think Desilu was kind of leading the way on that, and Star Trek was one of those, right?
Well, the rule was that you had to get to 100 episodes, so that you could be syndicated.
Really? That was,
and Star Trek didn't make it.
Yeah.
Star Trek only had 79 episodes, so the thought was, and so I was watching some of the Get Smart behind the scenes stuff, and what they would do for the lead actor is they'd go, look, okay, we can pay you what you should be paid as the lead actor, or we can pay you a little less, but we'll give you a chunk of the show. So we give you a piece of the show. Then if it goes into syndication, you'll make money off of it.
But it's a small chunk.
It's a small chunk, but it can add up.
Welcome to the show, Ethan Van Fanta.
What's up, Hannah?
There was a point in time where Ethan Van was a popular first name for everyone.
Really? Where, in like a Dutch oven territory?
But no, they made that deal with Shatner. So Shatner actually owns a piece of Star Trek.
Oh,
although the piece of Star Trek that he owns is half, because his first wife owns the other half of his piece of Star Trek, because he got divorced right at the end.
Okay.
But happened to Roddenberry too. Roddenberry's first wife got his half.
Is that before he married Meryl?
Majel, yes.
Majel Barrett.
Yeah, he was cheating on his wife with Majel and with Nichelle Nichols too.
No way.
He was not a.
How do you
he was
think
not a good
he
person.
wrote Kirk the whoremonger?
Kirk had a lot more morals than Gene Roddenberry did. Yeah.
You got to write where you live.
Yeah, there's a terrifying clip out there of an interview with Gene Roddenberry where he talks about his young daughters being delicious and how they wear these little short dresses and bend over and you can see their underwear and stuff. It's really disgusting.
Whoa. I mean, I think my oldest daughter, she's pretty as hell, and like, look, because people, Trump said that he would marry his daughter. It's like, I mean, if you feel you did a good job and your daughter's a good person, you'd be like, yeah, I'd marry her. Sure. I don't know.
There's a difference between thinking your daughter is beautiful and saying little girls are delicious.
That's exactly. Yeah, when they bend over and you can see their panties, it's so delicious.
Well, I used to be a lifeguard, and the kids would come up and,
anyway. Oh God!
No!
No, that was Biden. That was a rip on Biden. I forget.
But
they come up on it. They rub your leg hair. He's like,
come here and let me sniff you.
Before we went off
who knew this was going to be the last show?
Welcome to the last show.
Yeah, 900's it.
We're going for 1,000, right? What happened?
If you gave your star a piece of the action, then what they would do is they would work really hard, and you didn't have to pay them as much.
Well, he gave Nichelle Nichols a piece of the action. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, she. And
I don't mean money.
Yeah, there's stories about people
I have
wandering into
avoided those
Roddenberry's
stories
office
till now, folks. Just
yeah.
But
anyway,
want to ruin Star Trek for me. But yeah, there's a lot of controversy when it comes to.
You've seen some.
Yeah, so it was a surprise. It was a surprise though when Star Trek took off in syndication because they thought of it. They knew the show wasn't as unsuccessful as they said it was, but they did not expect it going into syndication with only 3 seasons that it would have.
Yeah, that was one of the worst things Paramount did for its future was cancel Star Trek. But now they kept moving it, the time slot, hurting it. They were actually trying to kill it off. Why do you think they were doing that? Were they
hated Gene Roddenberry?
You don't think they got it from the very beginning because it was kind of sold as Wagon Train to the Stars, and it kind of was. I mean, instead of you got it just went against
NBC hated dealing with Roddenberry. The only reason NBC picked up
Okay.
the show was because of Lucille Ball.
Okay.
Right.
And it
Because
was an
I've heard that.
expensive
Des-
show, wasn't it?
Desi Lu owned the studio. They came in because by this time Lucy's running the thing. She's divorced Desi, and the
Okay.
studio, they owned the old RKO studio, the 40 acres lot.
Oh,
And
really? Okay, that's right. I forgot.
They
that.
were doing the Lucy show there, but all the other shows that were being done there were just renting the place. So like Andy Griffith and Hogan's Heroes and all that stuff were just, and they realized, look, if we sell our own shows to the networks, then we're making all the money, because we can make the money for renting out for using the studio, and what the network will pay for the
Now,
episodes.
Mark, do you know if they
Yeah.
sold to CBS, NBC,
So that's- yeah.
ABC?
So CBS was Lucy's network. She was with CBS, and Mission Impossible. I think there were 3 shows initially. There was Star Trek, Mission Impossible, and Mannix. And Mission Impossible went to CBS. It was the show that did well. But NBC
Martin Landau.
wanted an in with Lucy. So if they bought one of Lucy's shows, that felt like it was a way that maybe at some point they could get Lucy over. But Lucy was still a big deal back then.
Yeah.
And but what they immediately found was that Roddenberry was just a pain in the butt to deal with, and he would go to the press and talk about how terrible NBC was. So he would always put out these so they did the first pilot didn't get picked up, but NBC said we want to do the show, we just didn't like the way we do it, so do another pilot. And one of the things they didn't like was Majel Barrett. They thought she was not a good actress, so they said, CBS did not have a problem with there being a female first officer. They had a problem with Majel Barrett being that character.
She was a little stiff and a little wooden, right?
Well, the character was written to be kind of more like Mr. Spock, but they asked for a different actress. Well, Roddenberry's not going to go back and tell his girlfriend they don't want you. So what Roddenberry went out and he would say, NBC said they would never accept a woman as first officer. So so he would do things like that, and it would always, it would frustrate them to no end that they were having to deal with it. And you mentioned the allegory stuff. He was putting on stuff that sometimes was controversial, and they didn't like dealing with them. There was a letter writing campaign to save the network. Roddenberry was behind that letter writing.
Right. Okay.
So
Now,
imagine your NBC. Yeah,
he had already
NBC
left.
And you're getting millions.
He had already left by season 3, right?
Partway through season 3, he said that look, if you give us this time slot, I'll come back. I'll be the full producer for it. So they started filming before that was announced, and I don't remember now. I think they gave Jerry Lewis that time slot, and they put Star Trek on. I want to say it was it Monday nights at 10 o'clock? Or they put it on at a time where kids couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
I guess in Eastern time zone, that would have been like 11 o'clock. They put it on late anyways. So Roddenberry just walked away from it. And that's why the quality went down on the 3rd season. But he had instigated this letter writing campaign. So NBC is suddenly getting millions of calls. They're getting, because it was a form letter, so they're getting millions of these letters. So what they did to cancel it in the 3rd season was they held off on showing the last episode. And so when people would call in and say, is Star Trek canceled? They'd say, no, there's still one, there's still more episodes or whatever. So the last episode, I think, didn't air until like June or something like that. And that way they got around the letter campaign and were able to cancel the show. But by that time, Roddenberry didn't care. He was working on a sexy Tarzan movie that never happened. So he didn't get to make that, so he made Pretty Maids All in a Row, which was
what was
about
he
a
doing
coach
prior to
serial
Star
killer.
Trek? Was he was doing
Forgettable.
westerns, right? Like Gunsmoke and things like that.
He wrote some westerns. His first show was a show called The Lieutenant, which I want to say was the Marines. I believe it was the Marines, and they actually at the beginning of the show they had the Marines signed off on it, so they were able to film on a base. They had all the extras and stuff for free, and then he pissed them off somehow, and they lost
the Marines off
somehow.
Yeah, they pulled their support for it, so suddenly the show was going to cost money, so I got canceled after its first season. But before that, he was a cop.
Yeah,
he was a motorcycle cop in L.A. and
Roddenberry was.
Yeah, he figured out that he could sell story ideas to television, and like I said, he was kind of a creep. He saw the fact that if you're a producer of a show, you get to audition the girls that are going to be on.
I'm surprised he didn't come up with Chips 1960. He was a motorcycle.
No, but he did write for a bunch of those type shows and for westerns and stuff, and then he was a pilot in World War II, and right after World War II, he flew commercial, and they wrecked. That he survived a plane crash. I want to say in like Thailand or Singapore or something like that, and then came home and was most likely he certainly was a colorful character.
Hey, K-pop.
Yeah. Hey, K-pop.
Hey, K-pop. Happy 900, Rex and Shadow.
Hey, welcome to the show, Fana.
Thank you.
Quiet.
And I'm going to stop talking about Star Trek because I won't stop.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, so because isn't Deep Space Nine? You're talking about was it the Wagon Train or something like that? Isn't Deep Space Nine supposed to be like what Gunsmoke or something, or the Rifleman in space?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And you could totally see it once because I was last year. It took us maybe 9 months to get through it, but me and the family were watching Deep Space Nine from the beginning and just went through them all. And yeah, it's so obvious, especially in the early stuff, how it's clearly they're on the frontier, and they're at a frontier town.
They're
and
on the
all the
spice, a frontier.
Yeah, all the major characters are you got the constable, you got all these different obvious old West tropes.
They hang out at the saloon,
they hang out at the saloon, yeah, exactly.
It's pretty elements cool within those shows. If you just sort of reckon it, Now, do you think that? Not to throw some aspersions to Deep Space Nine, I do own all 7 seasons of that, but and didn't watch much of it when it came out. But I'm a completist, and when it comes to Star Trek, and I still like some Next Generation being complete. I think 3 seasons, but even though they showed on TV every day, especially BBC America, it's big over there in the UK. Do you think that Babylon 5 was ripped off? I mean, did they kind of obfuscate his idea?
Well, supposedly he pitched it to the Star Trek people before they did Deep Space Nine, but the Deep Space Nine say that it was just a coincidence that they had basically the same idea. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of Babylon 5. I watched a few episodes. I never really got into it. I had a friend who was really into it.
Yeah.
He had to go.
Gotta go.
But I love Deep Space Nine. I thought
you need to get into it. I think it's a little lacking on some of the aspects of it, but then it's got Walter Koenig in it.
Yeah,
he does show it a couple times.
He's a recurring character in there, and he's kind of a bad, nasty guy,
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I remember seeing probably the first 2 seasons of
Yeah.
Babylon 5, maybe 3. I don't remember because I haven't seen it since it
And
was
what
on
did
TV.
you think at the time, Aaron? I mean, now you look at it, it looks a little dated. And actually,
That's all right.
Stravinsky's supposed to be doing a remake, which I'm excited about.
I'm not surprised. It has such a following,
But
even now.
most of the, Boxleitner might making a guest appearance or something, but most of the
Whoa.
original crew has died.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
I think
gone.
I've seen some of that every now and again. Be like, oh,
Mhm.
this person passed. Or is Bill Mooney still around? Is he still around? Can
He
you say
is.
Bill Mooney?
Yeah, he's still
Yeah,
around.
Bill
Yeah.
is. Yeah, yeah. But you also
You know,
had a Grease connection. An actor from
Oh yeah,
Grease.
Jeff Conway. Yeah.
Jeff Conway was in it as the
Yeah.
security guy for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Is Max
Farscape,
Baer
yeah.
Jr. still alive? I'm right that he's still alive, right? Max Baer Jr. is still alive from the Beverly Hillbillies. I think he's
I don't
still
know.
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah, he's the only one.
He's
and
got
I
to
thought
be
he died
really
years
old.
ago. I thought
Yeah.
he died back in the 70s, but apparently he's still he's the only one still living.
He just became a real estate agent and dropped out of Hollywood, probably. You
A
know,
lot
Yeah.
of people do that. Yeah.
that's what a lot of them
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. That actor just passed away from Lost in Space. That played on Lost in Space, the secondary guy after Zorro, the father.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he passed away. He was like a teacher or something for years,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he might have been played in an episode of The Fugitive. I don't know. I watch old TV. I like old TV,
Yeah.
because
I
like
mean,
you say,
what-
Aaron, the writing is so solid in there.
Yeah. It's way
Yeah.
better.
Hollywood was a small place back then, and you had these character actors who would just go around,
But now
and,
that-
you didn't have reruns, so they could be on the same show.
yeah.
The next season, to have a mustache and be a different guy.
Somebody else.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you missed it, kind of like over in the UK with Doctor Who, if you missed the original airing, there were no replays, and a lot of that stuff was wiped. So unless you saw it, like Texas Dave that comes on here originally, or Glenn Fleming that watched it when it originally came out, you didn't get to see it ever again because it was gone forever. That's kind of
That's
like
crazy.
live TV in America,
Yeah.
Can you
would-
imagine that guy who made that decision going, look, we don't need to keep all these tapes. Let's just reuse
Wipe them clean.
We'll we'll wipe them clean and
Yeah.
reuse them again. And nobody's ever going to watch these.
Mark,
shows
the
again.
next thing you'll say is that they're going to cancel Star Trek. What the hell? I mean, yeah, bad decisions,
Well, when they did cancel it, Paramount didn't have any faith in it. They offered it to Roddenberry for $100,000, and I don't think he had the money, but
Yeah.
he didn't take him up on it either. So he could have owned it outright.
Yeah.
If he had done that,
But now he tried to keep it alive. I mean, in the early 70s, they came out with 2 seasons of the animated, from
they did the
Filmation.
animated show,
Oh, that's
and
right.
yeah,
And they won
really
the first TV Emmy for Best Children's
Yeah.
Show. It beat out Captain
NBC
Kangaroo.
Yeah. NBC wanted to put the show back on the air, but the problem was they wanted a pilot. And Paramount didn't want to do a pilot because in order to do a pilot, you have to build a bridge. You have to build they didn't even have the
Mhm.
filming model for the Enterprise. I don't think any of the shots of the Enterprise in the 3rd season were new. They just reused shots from early on.
Mark, when you talk to those guys, they got half the Enterprise out of the studio dumpster.
Yeah, but they
They did that, but I think it was Star Trek
But
was an expensive show, wasn't it, for them
right.
to do?
So
Even though it was done on the
Paramount didn't
cheap.
want to do. Yeah, Paramount didn't want to do a pilot. They wanted a commitment to a series, a season, and NBC was like, we're not committing to a season until we see what it is, because NBC wanted to make sure that they were going to have Shatner, Nimoy, and Dr. McCoy and all those. They didn't want them to pull a fast one and say, here's
Kelly.
Star Trek, but none of the actors came back. So we've got this young crew or something. And even when when Paramount was looking at starting a 4th network in the late 70s, and they started up the Star Trek again, Nimoy was not invited. And
I'm surprised.
They
had he come out with his book, I Am Not Spock, was wildly unpopular.
he had that, but the big issue was that Roddenberry had forced. Roddenberry was writing a show for Universal and said, I'm going to use you, Nimoy, as the star. So he had to sign a contract with to be under contract at Universal. And as is typical with this stuff with Roddenberry, once they realized how off the page he was, they took it away from him. And it was the Questor tapes or something like that was the name of it. And they didn't want to use Nimoy. They used Robert Foxworthy. So, but I think Roddenberry didn't want to admit that he wasn't in charge. So from Nimoy's point of view was Roddenberry had promised his show, made him sign a contract at Universal, and then replaced him with somebody else. So at that point, Nimoy started complaining about Roddenberry would take bloopers and the original cut of The Cage, and he'd go to colleges and he'd do talks and he'd show them. And Nimoy said, look, you're taking basically a movie that I'm in, you're charging people tickets to watch it, and I'm not getting anything from it. So he complained. He filed a complaint against Roddenberry. So there was bad blood between them. So, but they, basically the setup for Star Trek: The Motion Picture was the TV show. So they had already introduced a younger captain, and the idea was if Shatner gets too expensive or anything, we just phase him out, and we've got this young Vulcan and we've got this young captain, and they'll go that route. So they were, if it hadn't been for the fact that they did movies, I don't think we would have seen the original cast. They didn't even contact poor Walter Koenig until the end of it. They had him come in and do a costume fitting, and before he got home, there was a message on his machine saying that the show had been canceled.
Oh wow!
We talked about the quality of the third season, getting a little wonky.
Yeah.
But now I think Walter Koenig's personal favorite episode where he has more to do was, or maybe it was in season 2. I can't remember.
Spectre of the Gun?
Spectre of the Gun, with the shootout at the OK Corral story. Yeah.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of the third season. That's before Roddenberry, DC Fontana, and those quit. They quit a few episodes into the first season, and they also lost their cinematographer, who was pretty great.
Well, they were not hiring the usual set of Hollywood people to write their stories. They had a lot of people who have written for pulps and for Asimov.
They did go after, right? They did go after sci-fi writers, but
like
then
Warren
the
Ellis.
Problem,
Warren
Ellis. they ran into the problem that these sci-fi writers had never written scripts before, and certainly not for television. So, every one of them would go, start the thing with, it's an underwater city. There's thousands of people and buildings. Stuff. We can't do any of that. So Roddenberry would rewrite all the scripts, and the people would get furious. And he would, his defense was, look, you don't understand the show. I understand the show. So I've got to change it. And Harlan Ellison was one of the first ones.
Ellison, that's what I meant.
That he hired. Yeah. And Harlan,
Warren Ellis. I
said Warren Ellis.
It was like Warren Ellis. Yes, that's him. Yeah.
I confused the two, but you knew who I was talking about.
I do that all the time, Aaron. I do that all.
So Harlan Ellison was like, he was trying to calm everybody down. He said, look,
he was writing for
serious sci-fi. Yeah, and he says, just understand, this guy he's really trying to do some serious sci-fi stuff. And until Roddenberry rewrote Harlan Ellison's episode, and then Ellison was furious and hated Star Trek for the rest of the time.
And yet it's a fan favorite.
It is a fan favorite.
It's probably the number one show that everybody remembers.
Hey, Tim.
But yeah, but Harlan submitted his original script to one of the science fiction things, or maybe even the Writers Guild or something, and won an award for the original script.
Okay.
And basically
So
snubbed his
it
nose.
diverged
Thumbed his
that
nose.
much?
Yeah, it was. Well, first of all, it was called City on the Edge of Forever, and there was an actual city in the script with these giant statues that were the Guardians of Forever. It was not a stone donut in the script.
All right.
And so the subplot was that when time gets changed, the Enterprise suddenly is beset by these space pirates or whatever. So there's a whole storyline that happens on the Enterprise at the same time.
Yeah.
And, of course, they cut all of that because they couldn't afford to do all of these things. Famously, Harlan Ellison talks about William Shatner coming out to his house to read the script when he was working on it. And he poked his head in to see him, and he realized that Shatner was counting his lines to make sure that he had more lines than Mr. Spock did.
Superiority. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, because they were bickering over who was like the main star, right? Like Shatner wanted to be the lead, and
Shatner
they were
was
like,
the
"No,
lead.
we're an ensemble. You're not more important than us." And that even
Yeah,
carried over into when Leonard Nimoy was directing, and then Shatner got the fifth movie, right? Isn't that how that worked? Something like that.
So he had a problem because they were fighting, because it was kind of Spock. Mr. Spock was basically a Fonzie thing where Richie Cunningham is the star, but everybody likes Fonzie. So so Mr. Spock is the more interesting character. They start giving him more to do, and Roddenberry wrote a letter to Isaac Asimov saying, "I've got this problem where these two guys are fighting over every line that they have," and Asimov's advice was, he said, write the characters to be best friends, and then they'll become best friends. And so suddenly what started happening was they figured out that instead of fighting who got more money and who didn't, they could create a situation where Shatner would ask for more money and Leonard Nimoy would then get more money from that. And then the next time Leonard Nimoy would ask for more money and then Shatner would get more money. They had this worked out to the point that in Star Trek Motion Picture, both Shatner and Nimoy had script approval. So there's sections of the movie that were rewritten by Shatner and Nimoy because they knew their characters better. And
is that why it was so slow and boring? Is that what happened?
No, actually, they came in and tried to make sense out of it. It was so slow and boring because the script wasn't finished while they were making it.
Oh shit! Because there's like these long drawn out scenes of just a spaceship, which there's nothing acting on it. It's just this slow drift across the screen. And I'm just like fighting to stay awake. I'm like, oh man, I haven't seen this in so long. I forgot how fucking slow it is,
I remember going to see it when I was a kid and literally falling asleep in the matinee.
Yeah.
Because half the movie is you watching them watch a movie.
Yeah. Like, what is going on with this? So I was telling you how we were doing the Deep Space Nine with the family. So after that was done, I was like, well, let's go and watch the old movies. And I skipped over the first one. I was like, we're not watching that one. I don't want to turn you off on the rest of them. Let's just go to Wrath of Khan. And
Wrath of Khan was great. Yeah.
We did that up to like 6 or 7.
Yeah. So. Wrath of Khan was a case where they went to a TV producer. They went to this guy, Harv Bennett, who did like $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, and those kind of shows. And he was like, okay, I can do this for cheap. And he went and actually watched all 79 episodes of Star Trek and, saw Ricardo Montalban in Space Seed and said, that's the character that's interesting. We needed to build it around him. And it's hilarious now to think about the fact that Ricardo Montalban, he was a famous movie star.
Yeah.
But then he was Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island. He was really famous for being Mr. Rourke.
Yeah.
But now all the kids only know him as Khan. This one movie, yes, late in life or whatever. That's what
He
they
was
all
on
know him
Bonanza
from.
once.
Yeah, he was.
And let's not forget him on
on
Naked Gun. I mean, he was awesome as the bad guy in Naked Gun. That was like, is that my fish? It's
Yes.
Like, all right.
He was also the bad guy in Freakazoid.
Oh shit! I don't know if I saw that one.
You didn't. He was the main. I can't remember now what it is, but he basically did the Khan thing as the bad guy.
I was just talking about that on a different stream. I've been on so many streams doing this book tour, but yeah, we were talking about like when they remade The Wrath of Khan with that Benedict dude, it was like they completely missed the point of like what Montalban brought to the role. Just his machismo, his charisma. Like you could tell he's has a high intellect, and yet you know he it's just there's so much going on in that, and it's kind of a subtle performance too. He's not over the top really, and I don't know. I was impressed going back through it, with the family and rewatching it, and I was so disappointed with the remake with Cumberbatch or whatever his name is. It's not very good.
The remake was a nudge, wink, wink thing. Oh, look, it's the scene at the end of Star Trek 2, but now Kirk's in the thing and Spock's on the outside.
Right, which was dumb, and it misses the whole point of Wrath of Khan. The original, where it's like it's a naval movie. Like they're naval battling the whole. A lot of the movie they're naval battling, and they just skip right over all that. I'm like,
well, in in Space Seed, the original episode, the idea is that Khan is this conqueror, and the woman that who falls in love with him is he's one of these like Genghis Khan type figures, and he's forceful but he's also super intelligent because he's genetically engineered. And there's this scene in the episode where he basically tells Kirk that they're like insects to him.
Yeah.
That he's so far superior to him. And I love that there's that mirror thing in Star Trek 2 where to goad Khan over the thing, he says, "Khan, I'm laughing at the superior intellect." And Khan just goes nuts.
Insane ego. I've dealt with that myself.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you. No, you're not making any sound. You're muted. Maybe a button came loose. Wire. I don't know. Your little microphone, Mark. Yeah, there we go.
Am I okay now? Yeah. For some reason, I got muted when I did that. But yeah, I mean, that was. I was very disappointed by that Star Trek Into Darkness. I first of all,
I was too, and I went to the theater to see
back to it. Yeah, They didn't need to go back to anything. They had a wide open thing to do whatever they wanted with Star Trek and tell a new story. And the best they could come up with is let's do Star Trek 2, but let's lie and say we're not doing it.
Right. Yeah, it was like, oh, by the way, it really was Khan.
Yeah.
Like, but Khan, it's a poor facsimile.
Yeah, Khan was a Sikh. He had taken over large parts of Asia. He was not even supposed to be Hispanic. He certainly wasn't a British guy.
Right. Yeah, skinny British guy.
Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor, and you could have given him an amazing role, and instead you tacked this on as a surprise. And
it was so lame because it's like, all he had to offer was the fact that he had a high IQ. And it was more like that, like, and it's been a while since I saw the movie because I didn't care for it, but it was more like the spoiled nerdy type instead of like this, like, machismo, just this guy that could command people. It wasn't
Right.
that at all, and it was
No.
I don't know. I said it was disappointing. So yeah, you get it.
Yeah, it was disappointing. And then they had this ridiculous idea that his genetically engineered blood could bring people back from the dead.
Oh, that's right. I forgot all about that. That's right.
That's what I don't like about modern Star Trek is modern Star Trek is not science fiction. They have lots of magic rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
And
More
I
fantasy.
I don't like that aspect of it. I do think, look, there's plenty of things in Star Trek that probably couldn't exist, but they have some kind of rationale behind them. But when you just make up things so that you don't have to have a scientific reason behind it,
Yeah.
it's a magic time rock.
Well, I mean, a lot of their techno babble is kind of that way. It's like, well, whatever kind of particle there is, there's obviously an anti-particle that will undo this calamity. It's like, wait a minute, guys. It's that way every time. Come on. Because they did that. It's pretty notorious during Next Generation. It's like, well, do the anti-tachyon beam and we'll get through this. It's like, wait a minute. So I'm glad that they kind of got away from it in Deep Space Nine. In fact, if I remember, I was watching Razor Fist or something. As he does, him and a buddy do a walkthrough of each episode and they review it and stuff. And they were talking about how it was an active thing to get away from the technobabble in like the first or second season. And one of the characters, I can't remember, I think it was Kira, where somebody was like, "What? Do you understand all that?" They just kind of made a joke out of it. So I'm glad that they didn't stick with the technobabble.
Yeah, it was a little bit much, but at least there was a tiny bit of plausibility with it, even though it was, outlandish, or like you said, if you can hide it in babble so that we don't know what you're talking about. But I feel like it's been dumbed down in recent years. But I saw Shatner at a convention and they asked him about the J.J. Abrams thing, and he said, there was basically a law that no Star Trek movie could make over $100 million.
Okay, I'm back now. Can we start over?
Welcome back. Yeah.
And he was saying, so the Star Trek movie that J.J. Abrams did made a lot of money. So now the question I wish I could have asked him was, owning a piece of Star Trek, does that mean you only own the TV show, or does that mean you own part of those movies too?
He's got to own the movies that he directed
the movies he was in. Yeah, the movies he's in, I'm sure he has a piece of. But what I'm getting at is if he owns a piece of Star Trek, does he own that piece of Star Trek no matter what it is? Does he own a piece of Star Trek The Next Generation? Does he own a piece of everything? I don't know that. I'd love to know that answer, but I don't think we'll ever find
I want to know if he turned down owning Discovery.
Because my thinking is if I can just collect money from it, I don't really care, what they do with it, as long as they're doing something that makes me money. But I don't know if because and famously Paramount, when Star Trek was super successful in the 70s in syndication, Paramount kept claiming that they never made a profit on it, which was just ridiculous. The show had already been paid for in the 60s. There's no way that they weren't making tons of money off of it in syndication. But
because that's where it picked up its popularity, right? So the lore goes. Yeah. And
it was on every day, and so it became a big deal. I was born in '68, so I remember just in the first grade it being on after school, and us just running home to watch Star Trek every day, and then going out and playing Star Trek with our friends. We're beaming down to places, running around with phasers and stuff.
See you, Shadow.
See you, Shadow.
But
you go.
He had to fix dinner, and he's probably eating it now.
Okay.
He has a drink in there too, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a beer.
yeah.
He's more of a bourbon guy.
Bourbon. He likes his bourbon.
Bourbon.
Mhm.
Nice. Nothing wrong
But
with
yeah,
that.
I think that that there was plenty of money being made at that time, and I would argue that was by far when Star Trek was most popular, was during the 70s.
Okay, so what's your favorite Star Trek either show or movie?
It's hard not to pick Wrath of Khan as your favorite movie. I think I there was a time when I could quote every line from it. I had a
Dang.
cassette tape in my car that had the audio from it. I would listen
Dang.
to.
I can do some Flash Gordon.
Okay.
Impressive. Shit.
But
Flash Gordon, I'm bored.
I would probably say the original series was my favorite show, but I liked pretty much, well, not all of them. I did like Star Trek: The Next Generation. It took a few years to get good, but I did like it. I love Deep Space Nine. I gave up halfway through Voyager. I didn't make it through all of Voyager.
Yeah, me neither.
And
But now I think it had a great premise. You know, again,
it did have a good premise.
On the frontier, way out there, kind of like Farscape.
Yeah,
Astronaut
Lost in
goes
Space.
way out there where no one ever been. So it's a blank slate. You can write your own ticket at that point.
Yeah.
And eventually they were brought in the Borg and things like that on Voyager. And you got your female captain.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you know,
so I went to the first Star Trek convention I went to was the 30th anniversary one. They had it in Huntsville, Alabama, because the space
My
center
neck of
there.
the woods.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I went to that, and in one of the panels they had Jerry Taylor, who was the writer, and she said something to the effect of that it was their belief that there was no such thing as a new Star Trek story, and that they were basically looking that basically every story that you could do as a Star Trek story had been done, so they were taking old ideas and just twisting them and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, if you don't think there's any new ideas for Star Trek stories, you probably shouldn't be writing Star Trek stories. You find somebody who still thinks that there are new ones. Right. And so that kind of soured me on it. Plus, you know, it's one of those things, you know, if you really love a food and then you have way too much of it until you get sick, then you don't want to eat it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That
you wind up animating 3 things about it.
Well, many years later, but but yeah, that Star Trek convention. I just remember turning to a friend of mine on the way going back and saying, you know, I don't care if I ever see Star Trek again. I just had my fill of it. I was done for a while, but I came back to it. So, but yeah, so yeah, I would go with those. I did like Enterprise.
See, that one I haven't seen a lot of, but my
only
buddy,
4 seasons,
one of my
guys, get with it. My God,
one of my super Star Trek buddies, he's like, you know, Enterprise is kind of it's underrated, and I saw something posted on Twitter not long ago. They were like,
it's underrated because of the opening theme song. Just saying.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, they're just saying that over time, it's really picked up a lot more, you know, like a cult following just for that one, and how they basically missed the opportunity to introduce Kirk at the end or something, but I don't know.
Well, so the show was leading up to where it could get to the Romulan War, which happened 100 years before Star Trek, and they started to. I think when they knew the writing was on the wall in the 4th season, they kind of let them just do wild stuff, and they did a lot of fun things. But you know, it was happening around, you know, the whole 9/11 thing, so it had this season-long storyline where basically there was this attack, and they would go from this alien race, and they were going back to try to find what those aliens were and stop the Earth from being destroyed. And so they had some heavy stuff early on, but a lot of people were very angry at the at Flip. Yeah, it's a Mad and Cracked with Star Trek covers. I thought it would be cool to have, but
Yeah. Man,
Nice.
Cracked. Yes.
they did a
Dude,
last.
Cracked is so funny.
A last episode that was supposed to be like an episode of the Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it was Riker and Troy in the holodeck, and it was supposed to be set when in a period where Riker was trying to decide if he wanted to go after his own commander or thing, and so the characters of Enterprise became guest stars in their own season finale.
Oh shit! That's
Which
not good.
20 people watching. Welcome, Flip City Magazine. Wear your wrench in good health.
Yeah.
Hey, Christy.
What's up,
Okay.
20 people?
We're supposed to make me stop talking about Star Trek.
I know. I've got so many questions. You know, you took us down the proverbial rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks a lot, Mark.
Yeah, well, look, I did at least try to warn you guys. Yeah,
Okay,
let me do
would
that.
you say that you would like to see another J.J. Abrams Star Trek?
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah.
I've kind of reached the point where I view the new Star Trek stuff as not really pertaining to the original.
No.
Canon.
Whereas
And I think
whereas
they
I,
said that right.
I think
mean,
the continuity
and I-
is gone.
Yeah.
And
so-
like the second Star Trek Abrams movie, wasn't it? Spock really comes from the main universe into that realm.
It
of
was the
Star
first
Trek,
one.
right?
Yeah,
I think it was the first
that
one,
was
yeah.
supposed to set it up so the
Okay.
time had been changed and this was a different reality. But
Yeah.
even in the newer shows, which are supposedly set in the Prime universe or whatever,
Yeah.
they clearly are just doing their own thing. And I just have to look at it. Look, I can read a Batman comic without continuity, and I can
Yeah.
you know I can read 15 different or watch 15 different Superman
What's up,
things.
Diggs?
Hey, Diggs.
It does. They don't have to all fit together. So
Diggs joined
that's the
us
kind
from
of way I
Twitch.
view it.
Yeah,
It's
I
the
mean,
only-
unless it's a
if you-
long crossover story arc, you know, that like they did with Batman in the 90s, you know, like No Man's Land or something in the 2000s.
Well,
It's like, wow.
I don't like when they try to retcon things. Like Discovery said that Mr. Spock was dyslexic. We don't need that. I don't think that
What does that
really
serve?
fits in. I don't know.
You know, but I did want to get back to the animated filmation because the writers could write what you talked about earlier. They could write the fantastic and actually
Yes.
picture it like
Yeah.
a spaceship that is miles long. They could
Right.
actually depict that in the animation and
Yeah,
make the little Enterprise that big compared to this other huge.
I remember
ship.
seeing some of those on Nickelodeon in the 90s. They would play them on Nickelodeon, like, I don't know, I can't remember, like kind of later in the day or something. And that was how I got to see them, you know. It's so
Well,
funny
yeah.
because now you'll see the meme of Shatner where he covers his mouth
Hey, Katie.
like that. It's great.
You know,
Hey, what's up,
what
Katie?
I would love to see is if they took those old Filmation things and redid the music using the music from the actual Star Trek. I think they would be better. That
Yeah.
Filmation music was weird.
Hit that
And-
like button. Only 8 of you have done it, and I was one of those. Damn it.
Yeah. Hit the like.
22 viewers right now and climbing. It's been a while since
Sweet.
we went over 20. You have to go.
Ooh, well, this is our
Now-
900th episode. This is an anniversary.
It's important.
Right, exactly. I feel old already.
You've been at
We'll be
this
back
100
tomorrow.
years.
Hey, you don't look
Streaming.
you don't look any older than 899 episodes.
Yeah.
Bringing the heat. Mark, I do. I put as a placeholder one of John Dillard's bystander drawings that he did for me recently this year, as a placeholder for the 900th episode. But I guarantee you, I will get your, and I want to show it. Mark made a thumbnail for the show. So let me.
I quickly let a computer make it for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it came out good. Did you put in like keywords like Pez and
Yes.
crayons and stuff?
Yes. I did a description of what it should be.
You
Then
know,
I did add the RC Cola logo because we've been talking about that.
Yeah. I told my father,
Man,
who was
RC
Ralph
Cola.
Christian, that Rex Christian should buy RC Cola. And I supported business.
Yeah,
Is
those
there
are
a
Rick's
moon pie?
initials. Yeah.
Do they even make RC anymore?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Hmm.
Although there
there a
for a
moon pie
time
on
I
the
could not
thumbnail?
get it in the late 70s, early 80s. I could not get it.
I don't know that I
where
see
live.
it in my region, so maybe they don't sell it in my region or something.
Yeah, that could
they've
be,
done that.
It could be regional. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I had to concentrate on finding where I want to go, which is Instagram, to get that cover that you made, that thumbnail. Appreciate the AI.
Did you put a moon pie on it?
I didn't.
So
think
that
to
was
put a
the
moon
actual
pie on it,
RC
Yeah.
logo on
I
his
added that.
chest.
Yeah, I added
I
that
thought-
later. I did a couple of things to it after the fact, but yeah, mostly it's just AI.
I like the bird-like, Shadowhawk Pez.
Yeah.
There we go.
So
there we go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got the. I put in. It was supposed to be a superhero with white hair. I don't know why it had this really long white hair, but and then Shadowhawk's like some kind of monster hawk.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And
Well, he's embraced that, so he likes that.
and I put in I added the in this issue choppy ass theater because he has two lower legs coming out of his knee.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, that leg looks awfully long. That's funny you covered it up.
Yes, AI once again doing weird, ugly things. But
Well, now I saw one recently that had like 6 fingers or something like that.
yeah, the fingers it has a lot of problem with
Yeah.
fingers and feet and stuff. If you look, one of the crayons that's sort of reddish brown there has 2 different color ends on it.
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yeah, they're on the right. Yeah.
But
I was saddened to see that they didn't have Confederate gray. You know, back in my day, that you could get Confederate gray, and then the Crayola company retired that color.
I wonder why. Yeah.
I don't know. The place that I usually go down to spray for mosquitoes, they used to have 3 flags. They had the American flag, the Arkansas state flag, and the rebel flag. But several years ago, when they were tearing down statues and things like that, they conveniently did away with the rebel flag all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
The high school that I went to in Caledonia, Mississippi, our mascot were the Confederates. It was the Caledonia Confederates was the name of the football team. And
how's that age?
They're the Caledonia Cavaliers now. They got rid of that.
They did change it then.
Can they even play the Dukes of Hazzard on TV anymore, or how does that work? You know, it's like
I don't know if you can do that anymore. Yeah.
I mean, the flag was the rebel yell flag, you know, it was to be rebellious, you know, like even was it, oh geez, I can't remember the name of the rapper, but he had rebel flag pants, you know, while he would perform and stuff. It's like, it's only racist if you want it to be, you know, so it's about rebelling. It's not about race. Really,
there was just a point where suddenly that turned. And then suddenly, it didn't mean anything to me as a kid.
If you want to put,
it had no significance whatsoever.
If you want to be a racist and you want to put racist sign, derogatory speech on signs in your yard, I'm fine with that. Freedom of speech to me is your right to be wrong. Like Doug Blaylock says, you can be right in your wrongness. You have a right to say it as long as it's not defaming anybody or
Well, if it's really racist, it's probably defaming somebody.
Well, I mean, they would call that hate speech now, right? And
yeah, I mean, there's a difference between just having a rebel flag and having something that was.
I agree. Rewriting history is quite Marxist. Exactly. There's a lot of rewriting going on, but let's face it. I think people are waking up. History has been rewritten since the Tea Party or before. It's been in this country for a very long time.
Well, it's always the winners write the history books. So.
Well,
I would almost like it, better now than like say in JFK's assassination days, where a lot of things were done in secret and the public mind could not even wrap around their government doing it. And Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America. He was still left of center, folks, even back then.
Oh, yeah. But the thing I found interesting getting older is that the farther we get away from things, the public memory is short. Mm-hmm. So we do as we get away from it, it's interesting to see how things do change dramatically, points of view that we take for granted from the time that we grew up in. Yeah. But young people don't have, to them, even the Vietnam War was 1,000 years ago.
Mark, I think part of it is people are tired of being abused. And, you take an abused person, they don't want to remember all the abuse. And we're such inundated with it. I think the public says, I want to forget this, after a while. They just don't want to dwell on it.
And not only that, but, sure, the victors write the books and all that stuff. But with the advent of the internet, that's a much broader exchange of ideas.
That's one of our saving things is the internet,
because
information's instant. People
that one kernel of truth, because in my opinion, the truth is magnetic. And it's like, once it's discovered and, it's put out to be displayed and other people see it, they will be drawn to it. And then suddenly it starts growing like a tree. And then suddenly now it is the new way of looking at, it destroys old narratives. And I think that's the way to do it. Is it always convincing to everybody? No. But if it's something that is true, people won't let it go. Because thankfully,
this was a question
I do think point of view does factor into it. Your reference points are different. I mean, somebody my age, the Holocaust is still within one generation.
Yeah.
I think about the fact my dad was in the Air Force. We were stationed in Germany in the late 60s, early 70s. And, I think back about now, the fact that anyone who was walking around the German guy who was like 40 years older was probably a Nazi. They may not have been part of the Nazi party, but they were a German soldier. They were that was that close that it was the World War II is still, in recent memory. Whereas
look at all the movies where the Nazis are the bad guys. Like
in the 60s, all the TV shows and that was only 20 years ago from that point of view,
right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But but you go to now, and it's almost a complete. It may as well have been 100 years ago, and it is almost 100 years.
Well,
ago,
time's a slippery thing. If you took the average lifespan of today, right, 80 years old. If you took 3 generations, 80, and 80, you're back to 1776 nearly.
Right.
The founding of the country.
True.
So, time is not as far back as what you think,
Right.
I love watching videos on YouTube. They'll come up out of nowhere and it'll be oh, here's a a soldier from the Civil War, and he's recounting it as an old man of what it was like to even not just the war itself or what they were fighting about, but like life, like daily life in the 1800s, and they're recording it in like 1908 or something. And to me, that's just like
they had
it's
a
a magical
in the 1920s.
In the 1930s. Yeah,
it's just like a magical window into the past that like nobody else in that I can think of in human history is able to look that far, that clearly, and get a firsthand account from the people that were there.
There's an old episode of I think it's I've Got a Secret, the game show from the 50s or whatever, and the old guy on it secret was that as a 4 or 5 year old, he was in Ford's Theater when Lincoln was shot.
Wow.
So here's a guy who actually witnessed the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and he was on a game show. So
back in the 50s.
is amazing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
And now he was a child of about 8 years old, but
he was little, but
he remembers it. And if you were a child of 8 years old and there was a shooting and the hubbub, that would stick in your memory,
Well, the president of the United States too. It wasn't just some guy.
That too, yeah. It wasn't just some guy. And we forget they also had a plot to kill a couple other people, right? The vice president as well as the president that very same night.
Oh yeah. They were going to take out everybody. Yeah, there was supposed to be a big, a big thing.
Kind of sounds like a baseball field from a couple years ago. Where they get all those Republicans playing baseball.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's right. Yeah. Holy crap.
And thanks to guns, the Second Amendment, and having a couple security people there, and really they were brave security guys to be charging long guns like they did. It
wasn't
turned out as a disaster for them.
It wasn't like the assassination attempt in Butler, that's for sure. The Secret Service was ducking. Like,
it would definitely changed history. It would have been
one of the guys in the Lincoln administration. He fought off the guy who tried to kill him, if I remember correctly, because he was like sick or something, and he tried to stab him up in his bedroom or something. I can't remember the story now, but they fought him off. So there was definitely an attempt to do.
There was
more.
A coup, yeah.
But it's I work with a lot of 20-year-olds and it we did something not long ago that had Gerald Ford on it, and so I asked the guy, I said, do you know who that is, Gerald Ford? And he could tell he was like, I don't want to answer this question. So he stared for a second and he said, is he an actor? No, he was like, president of the United States, but
and on the Warren Commission over the JFK shooting.
Yeah.
And I'm not suspicious at all.
Magic bullet.
I'm 56. So when Jimmy Carter left office as president, he was 56, and now he's 100 years old. Mm-hmm. That's how far.
So why aren't you 100? Wait a minute.
Well, I got to wait for the 44 years or whatever.
Yeah. He didn't turn 100. He said, I want to make it to my birthday so I can vote against Trump.
Well, I guess you have goals, but
he's in the hospice and he wants to vote against Trump.
I saw a picture of him. He's just like, he's just laying there.
I just remember.
You okay, guy?
I remember Bob Hope.
Want some peanut butter?
Make it to 100. Wanted to make it 100, and they wheeled him out for something, and his skin was transparent. He had these red circles around his eyes. He looked like
vampire,
like some science experiment or something. I was like, well, maybe living to 100 isn't all it's cracked up to be.
I know how he made it to 100, guys. Billy Beer.
Oh,
now
I don't think Jimmy touched the stuff.
Okay, well, that's
Billy did not make
story.
It.
Billy was Jimmy's brother, Aaron,
right.
And while he was president, he came out with his own brand of beer, Billy Beer, for a little while. So that's
there's nothing more fun than having a redneck brother when you're
being out there exploiting your name. Now, Gerald Ford, he was attempted assassinated. The only president. We were talking about this the other day. by two women. One of them
Yeah,
had
Squeaky
ties
Fromm.
to
Yeah,
one of them
Yeah.
had ties to the Manson's family, and one of them
Yeah.
had ties to the CIA.
yeah. Squeaky
I mean,
Fromm was the name of the
It's
girl. who
it's
tried to
one
kill
hand, and I mean six eggs and or half
Washes
dozen.
the
Because
other.
like,
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
I mean, well, I mean, the CIA, did they create the Manson family? Didn't the Manson family sell drugs for the CIA into Hollywood?
But Ford wasn't on the ticket. He was a replacement after the election.
Right.
So Ford was never even elected vice president. He just
He's the only
became vice
president-
president and then
Yeah.
became president.
He was
Yeah.
the
Never
only,
voted
he's the
into
only
office.
president that
Yeah,
wasn't
hello,
elected to
Kamala.
office.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Kamala was at least on the ticket as vice president.
Yeah.
Who was the he had to quit for something. Who was the
Spiro
You mean he
Agnew,
would-
before he came
Spiro
in,
Agnew? Yeah.
You mean
He
they
had to
had
leave.
something on him, and they
Yeah.
were threatening blackmail, and
yeah,
then
he had to leave. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
scandal.
he
and
was he
then
a-
we got a bigger
was he a
scandal with
Rockefeller? I
Watergate,
can't remember.
So,
yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Not Nathan. Was it Nathan Rockefeller? I don't know.
I can't
know what you're
remember the
talking
name
about.
of the vice president, but yeah, he. So
welcome to
so-
Dinosaur Island, folks.
Yeah,
We're talking stuff that people don't know about.
Well, and one
But
of the
that's
things.
the thing, to us, we remember these presidents, but to young people, we may as well talk about, Warren G. Harding or something.
I
like that.
remember. I didn't remember really his vice president, but his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger. I always kind of in my mind thought he was, because they went to China together.
Oh
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I looked up to Nixon, and I think
Well,
he got a
and-
raw deal. I think he
and
really
again-
was elected president in 1960, but he did not ask for a vote count. I think
It was
they-
it was
I
a
think
difference
his-
of 100,000 votes. Yeah,
I
Wow.
think didn't he lose by about like 3,000? I don't
I
even
think it was
think it was
100.
100,000.
I think it was 100,000, and it was in Illinois, in Chicago.
Okay. Well, yeah, they definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely had.
And
mob
Kennedy's
help
dad,
and-
yeah, Kennedy's
Yeah.
dad was a mob guy.
Yeah,
So-
well, I
Right.
mean, his dad. The
But-
way the
that
Kennedys
was the
made their
thing is-
money is they were moonshiners.
Right.
Right.
But Nixon said, that's what you do, and you just, I lost the election,
Mm.
and that's what it is. You don't whine about it or anything.
And Al
But
Gore says, "No, let's count every Chad."
yes, I hated that so much. Just
Yeah,
go-
I
and
mean,
it's-
in December we're still
snowballed
counting
since.
votes and we're holding our breath. Who's going to be
Yeah.
president?
yeah,
I remember that in
it's snowballed.
December. Even that was
Yeah,
crazy.
in December. And then the Supreme Court had to,
Yeah,
put a
basically
stop
to
to
say,
it.
look,
But
it's
But
done,
there really wasn't any drama because he had won the electoral vote. And if you just go by popular vote, then like states like mine, Arkansas or Alabama, where Fanta is, are not going to be represented at all.
right,
And in
right.
fact-
Then you have basically
in fact-
California and New York deciding.
In fact, when it comes to aid like FEMA, it's not politically expedient. They're already doing it, folks.
Yeah.
With these red states, it's like, yeah, we're not going to give you the aid that we would a blue state or a heavily hit urban area. And
But
that's
so-
not right.
So one thing you guys are talking about,
To say the
is like historical events and stuff. You got to remember like how fast information is changing for this younger generation because of the internet and
Right.
and who controls media and how fast they put out different stories and narratives constantly in all directions, and then it really takes like somebody to not be swayed so easily by emotional appeals to emotion and things like that, and really want to look at the events and try to find the truth. It's way different than when like, oh, I'm just going to turn on Cronkite, at 5 o'clock and he's going to tell me what's going on because, he's a neutral observer. It's
Well,
like,
I
there's
think
no
back
way
there-
that anybody believes that anymore. That of
Definitely
a certain
back
age.
then, we as Americans, we were like, spoon feed me the information, I'll digest it and make up my mind,
Right.
which
Yeah.
really it was already made up for you. But now we question things thanks to
Yeah.
the internet.
Well,
and,
I agree.
We live in a time though where news is more affected by ratings than it was back then. There wasn't that much of a concern.
Well, they had a captured
about trying to
audience
get-
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We now have way more people competing for it. And look, it's if you've got the country pretty much split in half, and you're a news station that is only doing one side of the story,
yeah,
I'm going to come on the other and start a news station that does the other side, because I can get the other 50%.
But I mean, you know, look, they're
and
not,
and
not
it's
gonna
better
give
for
up.
me. Yeah, it's better for me if I can make sure that it mostly appeals to this 50%. There's no profit in going down the middle.
Well, yeah,
that's
a conversation. You have one take, I have another, but I mean, the thing of it is, they've got their thumbs on the scale. George Soros just purchased 250 or 60, I think it was 260 radio stations. And really, he did, you know, that's public airways. And so they had like 3 Democrats on the, you know, 5
FCC
panel, I think, thing. And you're supposed to go through a rigorous review process.
Yeah, I heard it was illegal, and they basically changed the rules because you're not supposed to be able
accommodate and
buy all of that up all at once.
And they're doing away with AM radio, and then also there's a lot of the Latino that were getting that information from, like Mark Levin and, you know, Conservative Tacos, and they're trying also to do away with AM radio in your car, which during emergencies is essential. Really, it's been around before FM, you know, and I see no reason, but that's the big platform that talk radio, like Rush Limbaugh used to use, and now his predecessors use, you know. And
but yeah, that's what you've got
censorship.
Everything now is owned by a few companies. You know,
we talked about that the other day, that they're downsizing. Like DirecTV just bought Dish, so they're the only satellite provider. How is that not a monopoly?
Yeah, it is. And but you know, that's the thing is, we don't care anymore.
No.
we don't want, you know, it's a shame that the local stores are closing down, but I'm not giving up Amazon. So, you know, if it works,
right? They say buy local, but when there's a blizzard outside, hello, you know, I'm all for supporting your local businesses, but as big as Jonesboro is, it doesn't have everything and never will, you know, and especially imported goods, you know. But I mean, look at the strike that we just avoided. If you can shut down all the coastal shipping from Maine to Texas, they're too big. Though that Teamster unit big, if you can shut down all the imported goods like that, except in Florida, because DeSantis was saying our ports are open and, you know, fighting.
Yeah, he was gonna use the National Guard to do it, or I can't remember what he was gonna do to get around that. I think it was the National Guard.
You know, that would be like Reagan and the air traffic controller things. You know, you can't let those people go on strike. You can't shut down.
It's essential, right?
For that,
I mean, and that was kind of controversial at the time, but you know, Reagan,
it was.
You know, Reagan, even as governor in California, was kind of controversial with the Kent University stuff, right?
Oof, yeah.
Which turned out really to be a disaster. But you know, I don't know if there was trigger happy National Guard or what happened there, but you know,
well, when you have a lot of people who are all ramped up to 11 on both sides, you're going to have problems.
No.
Yeah, but I don't know. I do think that there's profit in trying to be as divisive as possible right now. I feel like the fact that news is a business in a way that it never was. So I was a journalism major in college, and entirely because first I was an art major, and then I didn't really like it, so I decided I wanted to be a writer. So I went to journalism, and people kept telling me that I had a voice for radio, which I guess was that I was ugly. But they they said I had a voice for radio, so I did broadcast journalism. And
stick with your voice.
So one of the things that I remember as a tenet of journalism is that as a journalist, you never make yourself part of the story. You're there to report the story. You aren't the story.
Well, look at Randolph Hearst, even with the newspapers early on. He wasn't warming the news.
Right, but he was owning the news, and that yellow journalism was wrong. But but I started to hear this after a while, and it just drives me crazy because it's now ramped up. It's the norm now. Is people started to say, instead of saying we've got an interview with the mayor of the city, it's my interview with the mayor is coming up at 6. My interview with something. Suddenly now the journalist is supposed to be as important, if not more important, than the thing. And now we've started to allow the journalists to pretend that they are actually the experts on everything. The journalists are there to report the news. It doesn't mean that they know anything better about any of these subjects.
Right. Well, it's kind of like when
you
the
interview the
journalist
experts because
I've seen this where the journalist interviews an actress that played a nurse once. So they're talking about medical issues.
that kind of stuff is goofy too. But it's become a celebrity thing. So
indeed.
Your journalists have to be celebrities, and so it's not enough that they report the news. They have to have an opinion about the news.
Yeah,
they have to have some kind of angle on. If something happens, you have to cut back to them so you can see the expression on their face.
Well, yeah, because that programs the viewers, right? It puts into their mind how they should feel about a subject. I mean, it's classic programming.
There's that aspect of it, but it's also about. It's all about ratings. So you need a star. So you need to think that this person is the best and this is this important person. And so you're tuning in to see this person. Cronkite was still from the Edward R. Murrow, school of journalism, where you just reported the story. You being
like David Brinkley.
Yeah, these guys, there was certainly an aspect that you wanted them to be respected. So, because you wanted them to trust them. But,
trustworthy.
But
because back then they didn't have social media, so we didn't know how he really was.
we had ABC, NBC, and CBS. Yeah. That was it, folks.
Right.
3 channels on the TV. Not big
and public access.
Yeah, you had PBS, but
maybe PBS.
But the thing was, you didn't tune into one.
Hey,
good stuff.
You didn't turn into one news station because they were left wing, or turn into another one because they were right wing. You just turned in to get the news. Now it's about that. You've got, and again,
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Well,
like him or hate him,
it's about money.
Rush Limbaugh saved AM radio at the time in the 80s, late 80s.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And that was him looking, he started out as a music DJ too. But he looked at what was working. And, you had shock jocks everywhere. You had your Howard Sterns and kind of stuff. And essentially what Rush figured out was, this is the counter. Those people who hate the shock jocks, you can still use that same formula of personality and talking on the air for 3 hours and go after that side. And again, that's the thing. If you've got a newspaper that only is pulling in half the audience, well, the other newspaper shouldn't be competing for that same half of the audience. Get the other half of the audience.
Yeah.
And so there's an aspect of it that's not genuine.
And Fox did that with Sean Hannity. You had the Democrat that was with him in the early shows, where you had both points of opinion, and everybody could tune in and hate the other guy,
Right. But that was
Mhm.
before things became so polarized. And I just say it's business. There's money to be made in doing this. Look, these political parties, if they want to raise money, they don't say, "Look, things are going to be okay." It's literally the world ends if the other guy wins. So you got to give us money right now, because
Exactly. Yeah.
if you don't, this is every election is the most important election of your life. Every election that the political party doesn't win is the end of the world, and it's just about getting money. And it's so obvious that they're pushing this stuff. And from, like I said, I'm a centrist. I lean a little bit to the right, but I don't like political parties. I don't like partisan politics.
Right.
And,
Well, I mean, Thomas Jefferson said the party system will be the death of us, basically.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing.
But if you continue, essentially, if you have two guys in school who hate each other, and you try to diffuse that situation, you try to keep them apart, calm them down. You don't keep going, that other guy hates your guts.
Yeah.
And try and egg them into really killing each other.
Well, gender comes into that too, Mark, because you take me and you fighting on the playground. One, I'm older than you. I'd probably beat your ass. But anyway,
Yeah.
not so much anymore. Not so much anymore. Mark probably get me in a headlock going, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Anyway, but you and I, as two boys on the playground,
tune in to episode 1000 where Rex and I duke it out on the playground.
Okay. Something to aspire to. But I mean, you and I would be playing on the playground tomorrow as best buds,
Right.
But you take two women in first grade, two girls, they'll be saying their graduating year, you bitch. I mean, women don't forgive so bad.
They do they do hold a grudge a little bit longer, but
than boys do.
Yeah. I think
how dare you?
it would. I think it's bad for the world to polarize everything, because I think
everything's been political, and if you don't think that politics is in everything today, everything, there's not one aspect of life that has not been politicized. Name one thing. I could probably
that's what I'm saying. You can't go to the movies because and it's not because there's politics in the movies, it's people have decided what movie is okay for which political party. This political party hates this movie, and this political party hates you for going to that movie, or this, that. And it's like everything is just so, and I don't, first of all, we're here talking about comics and such, so we have a lot of stuff in common. I don't believe that we believe the exact same way about everything. I don't think there are two people in the world who believe the exact same way about everybody. So that's why I don't buy this political party that everybody believes, that there's only two answers to every dilemma. And so I think it's easier that way. You don't have to think.
Welcome back from the bathroom, Aaron.
Thank you.
You need a toilet flush sound effect for for when people come back. Yeah.
Don't think I didn't go when I let my dog out.
But I'm constantly reminded, there was I don't think it was a Monty Python sketch, but there's an old sketch with John Cleese and some of the people from Monty Python, and they were doing a thing about the fact that the people on the right hate people on the left hate people on the right, and the right and the left hate the people in the center.
And every sperm is sacred.
Well, everything is so polarized right now, and it seems like it's in my opinion, it's a lot of it is from the media. They've been purposely agitating both sides.
Absolutely. There's profit in it. That's what I'm saying.
When are we going to stop calling them the mainstream media? They are propagandists.
Well, yeah, because what was it
Yeah.
in 2012? The Smith-Mundt Act was they altered the Smith-Mundt Act, which said that you couldn't. It was intended originally for foreign. You couldn't spread propaganda or something like that. Well, it affected the American populace as well. They got rid of that, saying that actually yes, you can. And so since then, every major media outlet has been basically a propaganda, openly admitted propaganda machine. So everything they feed you is to serve a purpose of a narrative and propaganda, and they can't hide it.
You're talking about the FCC allowing people to buy tons of radio stations and stuff. All of those things that sort of were put together to stop corruption have sort of been tossed aside, and we're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even did recently. It's pointless. I don't think anything will come from it. But they recently, made it okay for movie studios to own theaters again. You remember that back in the day, they all owned their own theater chain so that they could show they were making movies essentially for their chain of theaters.
Well, in early filmmaking, they had to pass laws because they were putting to make 1 second of film, you as an animator would know this, it's like 1 second of film is 24 frames. They were putting popcorn and other things, images to subliminally show you so that you would go and want popcorn. And they were going,
done
no,
studies
that's a form
of
brainwashing.
They in actual practice, they've looked at it subliminal. I'm sure they did it. It just doesn't work.
I mean, they actually said, no, this is not right, and passed law saying you can't.
But they also told them that they couldn't own movie theaters anymore. You had independent chains of movie theaters, but not too long ago they undid that. Now the studio system is all screwed up, so it probably isn't going to change anything. But they're undoing like any of those regulations that were intended. Like, I don't think we have antitrust laws anymore. You're talking about monopolies and stuff. We don't have laws against that.
Even when it's on the books, though, Mark, they're ignoring it. It's like they can take it to the Supreme Court, and it's like, we're going to do this anyway. And it's like, wow, man.
And not only that, but people complaining about BlackRock and stuff and Vanguard and whatnot. Well, you can put this corporation, some kind of investment in the corporation into a fund, right? Some kind of investment fund. And so now it can be owned by eight huge things can be owned by one mutual fund, and that mutual fund can mostly be owned by one investment firm, say BlackRock. And then you get around all of those established laws because nobody stopped them from doing that one. It's like, well, look at this, we got around that one.
It's the big bully in the room too. They use intimidation to acquire more.
Right,
and money.
Well, Rex, you mentioned Hearst. This is essentially what that was. It's this idea that if you can, if you can own the media, then you can control everything. But you and I, the vast majority of people don't care what's happening at that level anymore. As long as we can get cell phones that can do cool stuff, and I mean, I don't care about movie theaters anymore because I can have a giant TV that's with a 4K Blu-ray player that's going to look better than anything that
I've got a friend
growing up.
He spent about $16,000 on his TV, so that got
I like
screen that goes up and down and goes into the cabinet, and the cabinet costs more than the screen. A lot more.
Right, all the little motors and shit. Sure.
Yeah. But there was a time where I had to be there on opening night,
and he's sitting this close to it. I'm like, you need to expand your house. You're supposed to get away from that thing. It is radioactive. Hello.
Yeah.
He turns on his TV and his hair stands on.
It's like Yahoo Serious or Eraserhead.
But
I mean, Randolph Hearst, he tried to put the ixnay on Citizen Kane, the movie. He had to go in there and defend it and said fascism is on the march, Hitler is taking
Well-
over the place. Are we going
Yeah.
to allow that in America? And they allowed him to release that movie, but they were being pressured not to release Citizen Kane, which is considered the #1 movie of all time.
That's
for whatever
H.G.
reason.
Wells, right?
No, not H.G.
No,
Wells.
Citizen,
Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Orson
Yes.
Welles, my bad.
Orson Welles. You're getting your Wells.
Yeah.
mixed up.
That's why I'm trying to figure it out. I asked. I
Yeah.
did
I
not
was
assume.
born in 1956. What do you expect from me?
No, it was.
It was
It was-
Ashley was the girl I went to school with in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Warren Ellis.
Well,
Yeah.
I've
Warren Ellis.
often said, Aaron, time begins when you're born. Now,
Yeah.
I've always been different. I think I was born old. I don't know why, but I always
believe
like
it.
to look back.
Well, so does Cheapo in your chat. You know, they were saying
Well,
you've been
Eric's
selling this
old.
since.
He's just an old,
Hey,
smelly,
Eric.
Rex,
yeah.
Rex was born old in the 19th century.
Right. I mean, and he alludes to that all the time. It's like, yeah, you're older than dust. I'm like, well, put some water with it and I'll throw some mud,
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
so being a journalism major, I will say the problem, what I would like to support with the media, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, is that the press was the fourth estate. The reason why we had antitrust laws, the reason why we went after all this corruption was you had newspapers who would report on these things that were going on, and people paid attention to what was going on. Now we have newspapers who gloss over all of that. And
but I also
they
think
get you
it's
angry
lifestyle.
about other things, and they ignore these
I
things
think
that are
they've
going
geared
on.
society for the peons, right? The serfs that you put in the trebuchet and woo, cross country.
Well, there's definitely that aspect of it, but the press was the fourth estate because you had the three, the three arms of government or whatever, and the checks and balances.
El Hydra
was we had a fourth one that kept a check on those three. We don't have that anymore. We
Mass
don't
media.
have. Yeah, what we have is we have
majored in
infotainment
sarcasm.
news that mentioned sarcasm, valedictorian.
Yeah, well done.
That's called getting married, Mrs. G.
Sorry, well done.
Yeah.
And now she makes tragic meatloaf. It's
Oh.
circular. It's coming all around. They're
But
doing
yeah,
great on the cookbook, by the way.
I do think what has happened though is because they've been exposed for being as partisan as they are, nobody trusts them.
Yeah.
Right.
So
they have
the problem
undercut
is
themselves. They have nobody
So now-
to blame but themselves.
So if they literally needed to get out a message that was going to save lives, there are people who will ignore that message because they don't trust them.
Yeah. But now wait a
And-
minute. Look at Hawaii. That disaster in Hawaii. They were saying stay where you are. The people that ignored the authorities and left survived. The ones that did what the authorities told them to do died.
Well, and I'm not going to say that they get anything right, and I think it's a mistake to believe, like I said earlier, that reporters know anything that know more than anyone else, because they don't. In fact, most of them are not very smart.
They're always wrong.
Yeah, well,
98% of the time.
Yeah,
80,
they
okay,
have the
whatever.
excuse of the fact that that's almost still guessing. That's meteorology. There's so many factors of that you can't.
Flip City says.
Yes, I do think that's true. Yes.
Yeah, baked into the Gen X DNA. Yeah.
DNA. Yeah. Yeah. I watched something, and I never really thought about it before being Gen X, but they were going over the what we basically grew up with, which was things like Watergate and all this stuff. We basically, and even to the point of, we learned that lesson the hard way, that when you watched a commercial for a toy, that when you got that toy, whatever that great thing in the commercial was bullshit. You got it home and it did not do what I remember having those Star Trek communicator walkie-talkies, and in the commercial they're riding bikes halfway across town talking to each other. In reality, if my sister walked out of the living room we couldn't hear
Yeah.
each other.
No power.
Oh,
Yeah.
spoiler.
We
So
get a bigger
we
coil on that?
we basically grew up knowing that there was just mostly BS in the world. You know, we didn't grow up thinking that our politicians.
Mark,
were
you've been
particularly
sarcastic
trustworthy.
ever since you ordered sea monkeys. What the hell?
Sea monkeys,
Oh,
another.
sea monkeys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you we've talked about that before with Shadowhawk, you know, the things that you order out of comic book, like
Yeah.
you get a whole army for like 99 cents, 120,
And they were
but they were
flat,
like
yeah.
they were flat little, you know, and you put them on a stand. They weren't
Yeah,
even
they weren't
three-dimensional.
three-dimensional. They
Yeah.
were just
Yeah.
flat.
Yeah, a lot of the
but-
stuff you ordered was definitely bogus. You know, you think I'm going to get this
Yeah.
huge thing, and it's about that big.
Well,
and so
X-ray
that's funny.
specs just had a hair going across the thing, which would make it fuzzy. or
Oh,
something.
X-ray that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
what's interesting is like you guys are a little bit older than me. I'm more of like the end of Gen X and the beginning of millennial, right? Like I'm
Uh-huh.
79. So that's like I got to see all the commercials, those you know, G.I. Joe commercials or whatever, and they would
Right.
have disclaimers. They were saying, you know, this toy does not actually do this or that or
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
So which it was just funny because I remember my parents and maybe even some other kids kind of making fun of the commercials because it's like, oh, what dummy thinks it actually does this or that? It's
Yeah.
because the older commercials, they used to sell you that, you know, in that way. That's
The-
kind of
the
funny
funny-
listening
the
to you guys
funny
talk
Even
about
the
that.
Slinky. You would show it Slinky going down the stairs and
Yeah.
into the next room, and I said, and you do the Slinky, it'd go 2 times and stop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If
right.
you got
I remember
3, you were
Slinky.
lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, ooh, it's
None of
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of those things are, you know, the slip and slide looked like a water slide at some park or something, but really it was like, I'm going to go and throw myself on the ground.
Yeah.
Skid
Harder
across.
than hell.
Yeah.
And if there was a rock underneath it, you know, you were. And
Oh, dude.
all of these
Yeah.
things, they looked fantastic, but we learned over and over again the hard lesson that life is not that way.
Lawn darts. That's
Yeah,
all I'm gonna say.
Mrs.
Oh,
I
Lee,
had
that's
lawn
exactly
darts. I had lawn darts as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah,
the
but
Barbie
the
hot
Pet Rock
tub turned out to be
proves
a
that
cup of
people will
water
buy
with a
anything.
push button,
Pet
fart
Rock.
air in the water. And Flip City says, I was so poor growing up, I got in the tub and farted to pretend it was a hot tub.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
think
gotta
But
we all
yeah,
did that.
I'd never really thought about it, but we did grow up jaded, and I think it does. At least for me, for certain, I don't buy into anyone
Yeah.
selling me anything. I don't. I know.
Hey, Shadow
I
Punk.
know there's always another side.
Hey, Matt. I haven't seen Matt in a long time. You said
Well,
Shadow
and
Punk, right?
that is a
Shadow
skill that has to be learned and developed is you know, the ability to discern other people's rhetoric. It's
Yeah.
not as easy as you think. and,
Mark,
you know,
did
at least
you had the big
not for me,
long
so.
darts? I mean, those things were big. They were about this size.
Yeah, I do. I did.
Yeah.
But you know, Mom didn't let us like throw them around the house or something. You went outside and you played
Yeah.
with them. in
Oh
the-
yeah,
the
we
lawn,
would sell
right?
those things. They go about 30 feet.
I mean,
40,
I
whatever.
had regular darts too. Those were just
Mhm.
as dangerous, but
Yeah.
you know, you were pretty. You pretty much understood that you weren't supposed. I mean, that's like, you know, my mom hated the Three Stooges, but we all
Yeah.
watched the Three Stooges growing up. We knew you couldn't poke people in the eyes.
Well,
we
the
knew you
funniest
couldn't hit
commercials,
somebody with a hammer.
the funniest commercials to me are medicine commercials because I know actually somebody explained it to me. Rex, they have to tell you all this stuff, the side
the
effects,
disclaimers.
the disclaimers
Right.
for legal reasons. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, I get it. I'm like, they're wanting you to buy the product, but they're saying it can cause brain
it can kill you.
hemorrhage,
Yes.
senility. You know, you can be what do you call it, neutered or whatever. You
Yeah.
go sterile.
And it's a calm women's voice saying it can lead to something, even death.
Exactly.
Well, I
right.
don't
Yeah.
think if it can lead to
Right.
death.
Those are
yeah.
kind of hilarious to me. You know, it's like,
I like
yes,
the
try this.
I like the
Well,
one that
that-
says, "If you or a loved one has died, well,
It-
if I've died, I can't do anything about it."
If
Yeah,
bleeding persists for over 4 hours and you have an erection while you're doing it, go to the doctor.
Yeah. Good grief.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of changes the whole "don't die with dirty underwear on," right?
Yeah.
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 Just send it to
But
Panther. She'll watch it out.
I do think
What?
That's where I send my crusty socks. Just saying. Anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and
Rex actually
so
admits to it.
being as jaded as I am, I couldn't stand it when my young nephews were going to school, and it was like there's no wrong answer to the math question thing. I'm going,
Mhm.
yeah, there is. You need to be able to get the answer correctly, and you shouldn't have to fill up an entire piece of paper to add two numbers together.
Yeah.
And I just I can tell.
wait a minute. Have you done algebra? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
I haven't.
algebra's one thing.
Yeah, I
but if you're-
failed it.
But if all you're doing is multiplying 5 times 11, you don't need to fill out it. You got to memorize those multiplication things.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
and there's songs that you can learn from Schoolhouse Rock that'll teach you all of those.
Oh yeah, I'm just a bill. I
Yeah,
like the
but
one
you know,
with
like
my hanker
5,
for a
10,
hundred
15,
cheese.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40.
So funny side thing. So Schoolhouse Rock's not a thing for most kids today, right? And probably never even heard of it. But we homeschool our kids, and we use Schoolhouse Rock's videos from on YouTube and stuff, just to kind of like cover, simple,
Yeah.
A few
simple
years
topics.
ago at Walmart,
Those were done
you
by
could
an
get all those
advertising
on
agency.
disc.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
those were done by an advertising agency. They
Yeah.
basically said, and Sesame Street that was the original idea too. Was like, how can we use the same tactics in advertising to teach kids stuff? And
Hey, Mr. G.
And it
but
was
yeah, I
supposed
mean,
to be, from my understanding, that was specifically aimed at like inner city youth or whatever. So
yeah, Sesame Street originally,
Like a long,
but it
like
worked
a
for
lawn
everybody.
dart.
So
I got yoked mouth because I don't brush.
but
Shadowpunk said he got hit with one, so
Yeah.
watch out.
Yeah, watch.
That's what
Don't
I'm
run
saying.
to
can
the
walk
doctor.
around doing, we the people, in order to form a more perfect
union.
Yeah,
establish
see,
justice,
it's so funny.
ensure domestic tranquility.
Yeah,
Provide for
Those-
the common defense. Promote the general
Sing-songy
welfare.
is one of the best ways to teach very young children. So that's what we did in our approach with homeschooling. Is like you'll say a word like photosynthesis, and they've got a whole fucking song and dance about photosynthesis and how it works. And it's just like it's a godsend to because like they'll pick up on songs like nothing,
Yeah,
and
it's repetitive too. It's
repetitive.
They go
Yeah,
over
I
and
mean,
over and over again. Junction,
there's a lot of-
what's your fun?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
There's a lot of
Famous.
TV shows that I remember as a kid, and the only reason I remember them because you don't really remember individual episodes, but the openers. We were talking about that the other day. Like I can go dun 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 dun, 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 and you know what it is. It's Hawaii 5-0 if you've ever seen it because it has that great opener. Or if I did Get Smart, dun, 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 or something like that, or you know what I'm doing. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Sesame Street only taught me to count to 12. Where were you?
Take my horse to the countryside. New York is where I'd rather stay.
Cookie.
I get allergic smelling hay. I just adore Penthouse. Darling, I love you, but give me Park Avenue.
Yeah,
Green Acres is the place to be.
Yep.
I watched the first season of that recently, and it is freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, it was much funnier than I remember it being. I remember it being funny, but it was really fun. And there's a clip somewhere that they've gathered up because Lisa would see some of the opening credits. She could see them listing the writer and the producer and stuff like that. She would say, Oliver, the letters are going. What are you talking about? And she would.
Well, a lot of it too is now that you're older and you watch it, you get a lot of the jokes now that you didn't.
True. Yeah,
that was Rocky and Bullwinkle. That was the Jay Ward thing, right? You had jokes for the kids and the adults. You know,
Yeah.
you didn't really know what they were talking about, but it was funny as a kid.
Right.
And now,
Well, and we've
as an
talked about
adult,
how
you go back and watch it, and you go, "Oh wow," you know.
Yeah, we've talked about how Batman was deadly serious when you were a little kid and hilarious when you're a grown up. You know, it works on two things. But I watched.
I don't know if I ever took it as deadly serious. Maybe.
I did. I was like in the second grade watching reruns of it every morning before school, and I remember getting mad at my dad because he'd be laughing, and I'm like, you know, they're giant ice cream sundaes or something, and my dad is laughing, and I'm going like, they can die, they'll freeze to death in those things. This is nothing to laugh about.
How did you deal with the paradox of there's Eli Wallach as Mr. Freeze on one episode, and then there's somebody else? You know, there was like three or four different Mr. Freezes.
I don't know that I was that sophisticated as a kid.
Or a couple of different Jokers. There are Riddlers. There was Frank Grosjean, but there was also the guy from Addams Family.
John
Who's
Astin,
still alive, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. John Astin. I forgot he was Riddler.
Alive,
yeah.
He's older than dirt.
Season,
but
he's older than dirt. He actually is the adopted father of Sean Astin, the guy that does Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, because he was so married to Patty Duke. Yeah, Patty Duke is his.
That's crazy.
His mom. Yeah.
Oh, old Hollywood, right? He was adopted though.
Yeah.
You know who I didn't
what I
know,
saw on the internet.
Okay.
I was just recently they've got a new version of Salem's Lot, and I was rewatching the old one. And Bonnie Bedelia, who was in Die Hard and stuff, remember she was John McClane's wife.
Yeah, the redhead. Okay.
Her real name is Culkin. Macaulay Culkin is her nephew.
Get out of here.
Here's Mark watching Salem's Lot. Where's Starsky?
That flew over our heads. I don't know.
Yeah, that went over mine. It's fine.
David Soul.
I know Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
But I never saw the original.
Yeah, David Soul was in Salem's Lot.
David Soul had a music career. Just saying for a minute.
He was in an episode of Star Trek too.
Oh, that's right. You know, when he passed away, I found that out. He was in the Apple.
Yes, he was.
Episode. Yeah. Very young David Soul. I did not know that was David Soul. Didn't know that he started his acting career that young.
Yeah.
What's fun to me is watching those reruns and then seeing like Jack Nicholson on the Andy Griffith Show or things like that.
Yeah.
Somebody when they're right. Yeah. That was fun. And then but I do think though when you're very little, you're talking about the Frank Gorshin, John Astin thing. I remember it was hard.
Gorshin was awesome.
It was hard to recognize somebody out of character.
Yeah.
As a little kid, you don't know the faces very well.
You
so
had a
seeing
studio
them as one thing and another thing.
Well, what was that robot thing that that Catwoman did before she did Batman?
Oh,
she did, and
she was an android. What was that called?
Julie Newmar. She played in a comedy, and that's where I knew her from, and it was great. I loved it. It was kind of like
most of those episodes got burned up at that fire at Universal Studios. So
I think they've got the first 10 episodes, and that's about it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to have a robot Julie Newmar.
Oh, absolutely. I just blow up
a little bit more time, you probably will have.
Yeah, and Julie Newmar's in her 90s, but she's still alive. She's like 91.
She's still
crazy.
There's
and I would still marry her.
Have one person. I would too. I would still marry Julie.
She's like 6 foot tall or more. She's
She was what
very
was the
tall
character she was in? The Al Cap thing, Stupefying Jones, or one of the characters in why am I blanking on the name of that comic?
Well, now she was on Broadway. I think it was Broadway play of Val Capps, along with with the girl that played Ginger. They knew each other very well. Yeah. On Gilligan's Island.
And she was in an episode of The Monkees, and they had her next to Davy Jones, and she just towers over.
Yeah, and she did some Saturday morning TV bits in the 70s.
Okay, I don't know if I remember that.
Yeah,
but
yeah, she did.
I probably wouldn't have known who she was.
Right? Yeah. I didn't realize that the kid that played in HR Puffin stuff. Who was that? He came.
Some British kid, right?
Yeah, he did something early in the 60s, and I was like, "That's him."
Wasn't it like? Didn't he do like Oliver or one?
Yeah, Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
I love that version of Oliver Twist, that early 60s version.
Well, and
that's the classic one, isn't it?
Please, sir, may I please have some more?
No,
get out of here. You can't have your meat. If you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding.
Yeah. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat?
That's right. Get out of here with this. Give me some more. Get out.
I will tell you, though, that as a grown-up, don't try to ever watch the first couple of episodes of Family Affair.
Oh,
I enjoy.
We're talking lethal amounts of cute with those little kids, and you will sob.
Like the haircut,
I don't mean you'll just oh, that's touching or whatever. But the setup of this show is that Buffy and Jodie and Sissy's parents are killed, and they basically get sent off to different people because their Uncle Bill is like a bachelor who is not always on business trips, and they basically drop him off. And at this point, Buffy is like she's been through it so much that she's like, I understand that you don't want me and love me and you don't want to take care of me and stuff. And you're just sitting there weeping at how sad she's.
Maybe that's why I like A Family Affair. I always have. Now, the bachelor was Keith. What was his name?
Brian Keith.
Brian Keith. Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. I think it's
when I think of Brian Keith, I think of the McCormick thing, the 80s.
Hardcastle and McCormick.
Hardcastle and McCormick too.
Oh,
but during the 60s, a big thing was you were going from the Golden Studios, and people like Brian Keith that had been in the movies quite heavily, and also Carl Malden, who did Streets of San Francisco later. Why did he do that? Because the studio's work was drying up, and sort of the stigma,
Brian Keith,
if they wanted to continue working, they had to go into TV. At one time, there was a clear divide. Oh, you do TV, then you can't be in the movies. And if you're in the movies, you don't want to do TV. But that kind of eroded.
The producer on Family Affair was the same one on My Three Sons, and he'd come up with that trick where he could get Fred McMurray. And the way you could get a movie star was you'd film all of his scenes for half the season in like 2 weeks at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Then you'd film everybody else's stuff. Yeah. And you'd come back again for a week at the end to do pickups. And Brian Keith did the same thing. So all the scenes with him would be filmed for all the episodes would be filmed one after the other. And then you'd spend the rest of the season working with everybody else. And so you sometimes catch the kids being different ages throughout an episode.
Remember when you knew, remember when you knew a movie star's career was over when you saw him in a commercial? Remember that?
Yeah.
Or on a TV series, you're like, oh, they're not doing well.
Right. That's why they would do them in Japan, because they could get like Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever to do Japanese commercials because they didn't air in the US, so you didn't know they were doing commercials.
Right.
Those are some weird commercials.
They're super
I want to
weird.
be fair to Aaron, as riveting as weird commercials subject is, and other things. I want to give Aaron a chance to talk about Immortal Rising #2,
Yeah.
Burnt Offering.
Yes.
Oh,
So
sure.
let's bring up his campaign, which
Hells
is
yeah.
currently over on the Pink Indiegogo channel.
Rex, you only
And,
waited 3.5 hours to get to it.
I don't mind.
I
Actually,
did play.
I
did
showed up
play
to
his
hang
trailer.
out. So. Yeah.
Yeah. 82 backers, $4,150.
Nice.
Yeah. Kicking butt.
35 hours left.
We're coming down to it.
Now, is this the first 30 days or the last 30 days?
Is this a comic?
This is the last 30 days. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, if you scroll down or play the trailer again, that's cool.
Yeah, I'll play the trailer again, and that'll give us a.
That'll give us a slideshow of some of
the.
My
Yeah.
Creator, from your chaotic bones, I shall make my order.
Oh, am I roboting?
And I must say, thank you to
No,
the good
it's
stuffs for this.
This
right?
is choppy ass theater. Yeah.
Oh.
No, I just stopped it for a second. Jeez.
Congratulations, recruits.
I'm so excited.
I don't want to babysit two spoiled princes. I need to make a good impression for the soldiers. This is a silly waste of time.
What? Is that my long-lost magic ruby? Empress, find my ruby.
Your will is my command, my master.
There's
We're
a fan
invading
favorite.
Terra to find Balmain's ruby.
Yeah.
Go forth, save the innocent, and punish the wicked.
Yes, Father. I have an easy life. But is that all there is?
The ruby could win this war once and for all. Let's kick the nest and see what falls out.
Loki just calls to his creations for help.
Where are we?
What are those things? We have to get out of here.
Have the gods gone mad?
The Bomanites have invaded Terra. Has the last shard of Loki's heart been found?
The war cannot continue without the heart. We can't risk losing it if it's there.
You've come to the wrong place. Terra is under my protection.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
And I noticed
Very
you had
cool.
a Jimmy Reyes cover.
Yeah, he did the ogre cover for #2. It was he did the line art and the inking, and then I got a RPG artist. He does a bunch of RPG titles and whatever. He did all the coloring. So
Oh wow. Yeah, it's nice.
yeah, and so the blue girl, that's all Corey Barton. Every
Yes,
bit of
it
that
is.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, after
I'm
my
trying to
first
get a-
campaign, she was like everybody loved her during my first campaign. So I was like, well, let's do a cheesecake, like, because Immortal Rising, I don't do any sexual content. I don't even cuss. So, but for this
yeah, but
one,
I
I was
noticed
like,
she's not on any of the floppies.
right. Actually, so yeah, all the floppies are done by the sequential artist, who is Jose Garcia, who is like a long resume dealing with animation studios. So yeah, he does all the sequentials. And then I was like, hey, will you do some, had to ask a couple of guest artists to do the covers for the premiums. So that's why they're all different. Yeah. But yeah, you can see that there. And in case you weren't around for the first campaign or don't know anything about Immortal Rising, it's kind of an epic story. I think Rex got me on this one. He was like, why don't you explain Immortal Rising with one word? And I did terrible at it. So this time I will say, it's epic, right? It's
epic.
Yeah, it's epic fantasy. You've got
good word.
A lot of different, things going on. For instance, you've got like this evil alien empire invading. You also have a lot of medieval D&D fantasy kind of stuff going on. And the idea is the main story is about these 5 strangers who are thrust together by fate to fight in a unknowingly fight in a war of the gods, and they have to survive not only the monsters without, but also the differences within their own group. And they, like the first 3 books is really them getting over their differences and their bullshit and figuring out, what they're there for or why and all this other stuff. But that's kind of the main story. It's about 34 pages. And then I have a 10-page story that coincides with it that follows the gods. So if you've ever played a role-playing game, it'd be like the main story would be like the first level group. And then the side story, Knights of Locutus, you follow the gods story under the same events of this evil empire invading this, this planet, looking for this artifact that they believe will help them win the war against the good guys. So the side story, Knights of Locutus, it's kind of like if you think of like Clash of the Titans, right? Where you can see Perseus as as a first level dude, and then you've got like Mount Olympus shots where you kind of get a peek into what the gods are doing. And in this case, following the god story, the first one, you actually meet them. They go into hell to kind of like deal with this asshole who betrayed them in a past battle. And so it's during this time that they find out that this planet Terra has been invaded. And in the second one, you see what they do with that information. So also in the first one, all the 5 heroes kind of meet. And if you've read that one, there's a little bit of tragedy in there. And by a little, I mean a lot. And then so in the second book, I introduce the party wizard, and you get to kind of see what the magic system is and stuff like that.
Now you stuck with Indiegogo on this, and I asked you this last time that we were on over on Apex's channel. I believe it was. Have you given more consideration to going over or simultaneously, sending it to Fund My Comic or some other platform?
Yeah, so I was thinking about what I did with my first campaign was I had my initial, launch and campaign on Indiegogo, and then I put a storefront, on Fund My Comic. I think I'm going to do the same thing this time. So I won't be offering a bunch of the additional things that the Indiegogo campaign offers. I'll just offer maybe, a couple of books because, it's a lot to manage and ship, so
when they hop like that, they'll do like cover exclusives or something.
There are plenty of Fund My Comic loyalists, so I don't want to disappoint them, so I want to put a storefront on Fund My Comic, and I don't know if I'm going to stay like in demand on Indiegogo. The whole point for me is to get up enough cash that I can buy extra stock, like I can provide for the initial backers everything you want, right? And then I'll have extra to go to conventions and whatever.
The advice I've been given is, wait till after fulfillment, keep it up, and then have it close out, because after it's reviewed and people are seeing it, they'll want it, and you've already got it shut down. You can't capitalize on that. So some people like to do that, some people don't. So that's what I have planned to do.
Aaron, is this ongoing, or is this a set number of chapters?
3 issues, isn't it?
Well, so this arc will be the 3 issues. I did it in 3 acts, but I am planning to go on as an ongoing series as long as it can be made. Right.
What about spinoffs? You're already kind of doing that with the Ash Cans, right?
Right. So one of the Ash Cans was a short story I did that was in universe, but doesn't have to do with the main story at all. It's called Immortalizing Tales. And that one, I like the idea of doing Immortalizing Tales because I can, it's such a rich setting that I can do one-shot stories explaining things that, that are mentioned but aren't focused on in the
Marvel
main story.
Did that too back in the day. Even in the 60s, they had Thor, the main story, and then they had Tales of Asgard in the backup.
There we go.
Backup feature.
Exactly. Because like I was saying, there's so much going on. It's new to, people, and the way that it's written, you dropped into an already lived in universe. And so to explain some of the back things, I think that the Tales would be cool. In this Immortalizing Tales issue, it has, it's kind of it's a one shot. It's I think about 8 pages, and it doesn't affect the main story, but it helps fill in some of the setting in like an indirect way. So it's kind of cool because it serves its own purpose. But if you read all of it, it makes more sense. Also,
Okay.
so yeah, you don't have to read it. It's just kind of like a side thing where. And I guess I'll explain a little bit. Yeah, there you go. It's this kind of like weathered, grizzled magical warrior who is asked to save a young girl's life from an evil cult of vampires. And so, well, they're not vampires, but they're a cultist to vampires. And so he goes in and he kicks a bunch of ass and all this other stuff. But he finds out that the girl's soul has been taken into the spirit world. So the whole point is he goes into the spirit world in search of her soul, and things don't go very clean for him. So whether or not he survives, you gotta read it to find out. So
yeah,
okay.
I mean, that's the thing with comics. We're not on a monthly, bi-monthly, or even quarterly. Necessarily, so you have to kind of do complete wrap-up stories that can allude to future stories, but it has to be sort of a satisfying experience the first time, right?
Self-contained
somewhat.
Which is something that I have learned after already getting into it, because my original idea was just to tell my story. I didn't care how it happened.
Or you could do like Death over 300 pages and take 2 years or more and do this big opus, the big opera.
I know I ordered it. I'm waiting for it. Eventually it'll be done. I'm not sure when, but looking forward to it.
I believe Death is done and delivered now, isn't it? I think it's out. You should have got your copy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll have to go back and make sure.
It's been shut down a few months, I think.
Okay.
Either that or he hasn't delivered it, but I think he closed the campaign or something. I think you can
that's what I thought.
Get it offside or something if you contact him, because I still haven't ordered it, but I want to.
Because I'm pretty sure he was on my channel like 2 years ago talking about it, and I think that's when I ordered it. So but anyways,
he wants to tell that story all in one big thing, and that's what blows me away about these crowdfunders. It's like, it's 180 pages. It's 100 pages or what. I'm like, wow, man.
As a writer, that's a lot of money without any pay. That's a lot of initial investment.
That's right. Yeah.
Oof, that's a lot. Yeah. So but I'm dealing with a professional animator with Jose Garcia, so it's he's not exactly
a great colorist. He's done
and his coloring is like hit a new level since we first started working together.
I ordered his comic because Uncle E at the time was saying, "Hey, this is cool," and I looked at the campaign and it did look cool, different than anything else I'd ever seen. Of course, he's got a color palette that has a very animated Cellville type, I don't know, look to it, and it's different than any other colorist I've seen. And
then he changed since then, because his old coloring style was much more like flats, and now it's a lot more dimension to it. And like you could see, that's one of the things.
But what a great guy! I mean, Jose, we've had him on here, and he's like, since it was light, and I didn't think it was extremely light, really. He did another huge book and sent 2 books to you. Which was amazing. What a guy.
He's awesome. I mean, he does the comic stuff kind of as a side, because he has his he does like courses. So
he's always in demand. He's a hard worker, man.
He is. He's insane.
But I mean,
he's fast as hell.
That, props to you, Aaron, because to get somebody to commit to a large block of pages and what
Yeah.
that will actually stick to it. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of starters in this business, but for some other reason, it's like, yeah, I got to drop out. Then what do you do? You know,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck in the middle. But if you can get a workhorse that like 30 pages, yeah, no problem.
I will say this. I feel kind of touched in a way, not in a Catholic way, but I feel kind of touched in a way because it's like, fan, I got it. Because it's like I met Jose before he started doing comics. I was like starting my own thing. I happened to find him, saw he was doing commission work. And it was, fantasy medieval stuff. I was like, "Whoa, dude, will you do this for me?" And that's where it started. And we've been working together since then. And
Well, I
I'm
know
so
there's a
glad
lot of people that the
to
fantasy
get in
or
with him.
Dungeons and Dragons is really, that type of genre or whatever, that background is becoming more prevalent in the NCG or whatever, the crowdfunded books, and the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're blending, and I kind of, I can't take credit for anything like that, but I've been hitting on that since I started my show. Like the whole thing was like, I'm going to do the fantasy stuff, right? So I talked to tabletop guys.
That's why you haven't had me
fantasy
on in a
novels. What's that?
Nothing.
Because you do superhero? Is that what you mean? No, it's because you stream like hours a day, you know what I mean? Like every day.
Well, I'll start that up soon, but yeah, I mean during my work time I can't do that in the evenings, but yeah, I'll be streaming a lot more here.
Yeah, like you stream often, so it's like, but yeah, shit, we'll have you on.
So
actually,
that precludes me from being invited.
No. Wait. So I'll put it this way. Fridays, I do shows with Jason Sandberg and Craig from Soultac. We have
my guess, folks.
I was gonna say, don't let Rick sidetrack you on trying to.
I don't mind.
To appease
it's fine.
him. Go back to you're talking about doing fantasy and.
No, wait, but you don't understand. So on the last day of my first campaign, I happened to see him on, and he was like, "Yeah, come on." So I came on. We streamed for like 3 hours, and we closed out. I had buyers and everything. It was awesome. So then I tried to repay him by, I don't know if you know this, Rex, but I was like, hey, get a hold of Rex because he's got his thing going on. And then we ended up being on John Douglas's show together. And that was a little bit of, I was like, well, get a hold of Rex too, So like, yeah, definitely, dude. You're not far from, I'm helping out too.
Hey, I'll go anywhere, anytime, In fact, the way I started putting content up, we were watching Michael Bancroft's show, and Apex Comics was going to start a late night live stream. He'd never done a live stream. He always did canned videos, right, and dropped them on his channel. But he was putting up content, but they were never live. And so he says, "Hey, after the show, come over. I'm going to do Apex After Dark." And I kept showing up, As long as he did it, I was on with him the first time, the second, the third. By the third, I'm like, yeah, you're kind of like my co-host, So, and then he challenged me. By then I was putting up content because he had challenged me, I want to see 2 videos by next week, and 4 days later we're streaming again together. And, I had 6 videos up. So that's what started.
Yeah.
Just co-hosting on somebody else's and being invited on their channel. And then I kind of did that with Shadowhawk. Shadowhawk was a big chatter, big supporter, right? But he'd never been on a show. And so eventually when he was available to do, and I started having guests on and using StreamYard, he became my co-host.
Right.
And that's, that's the way you do it.
Well, so
You get
to put it in a
invited on,
little
you stay.
perspective of how much Rex streams, I believe the show that I did with him on the end of my campaign was like 500, and now we're at 900. So that was a year and a half ago. And
wow.
So yeah, I mean, you'll have all that.
Yeah. Well, I've got over 1,700 videos up on my.
I believe it.
On, and counting, but in my defense, about the only thing I've done recently is the 4 o'clock shadow. So, and it usually doesn't run this long, but we've been doing shorter ones. But
No.
Yeah, I'll get back to it. My longest stream though was 30 hours or so.
Ooh, holy cow.
And you can only do like 11 on StreamYard. You can only do like, or YouTube, whatever it is. They put a limit of like 11 hours and 55 minutes. So you had to cut it off there and start a new stream. So it's kind of like in 2 parts.
That's so funny. I didn't know that. Because
no
sane person would stream that long. So
I fell asleep for like 30 minutes. And the way I took breaks when I didn't have other panelists on was I would show a repeat because I've got lots of content on the channel, right? I was like, hey, this is the very first thing I streamed, or this was the first time I had guests on, or and I something that didn't run for an hour, but it would give me time to go get something to eat, use the restroom, let the dog out, stuff like that, and then I'd come back to the show. And then I fell asleep with a big panel on for like 30 minutes. I think Fanta was on there. They thought I'd passed away in the chair because I didn't move. I didn't snore. I was just dead to the world for like 30 minutes.
At some point, hopefully not anybody on this panel, but at some point, that's probably going to happen somewhere, is that there'll be a stream going.
Yeah.
With somebody who's gone.
Yeah. Well, I've had people fall asleep on me. It's okay.
I'm falling asleep on this.
I'm talking the big. I'm talking the big sleep, Rex.
Shit!
The big,
let's hope not.
Shuffling off the mortal coil.
Right. I'm coming to meet you.
They'll think you're just sleeping, and that's when your sub count will rise and all that good stuff.
Right. I mean, then that keeps on giving. Yeah.
Dude, this guy died. Sub his channel. Fucking 500,000 subs later.
Yeah. What do they call that post? Where they honor you after you're dead? Posthumously, whatever.
Posthumously.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it would be just like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, famous. I've done a few chair streams because Del Keon fell asleep on stream for a while, maybe 6 hours, or for a while, I think for about an hour, and he gained like 600 subs in one night. Now whether he kept them, I don't know, but
I might try that.
Try it at least once. I got a good looking chair here.
Whatever, get me to 1,000.
I'd do the 4 o'clock shadow, and I would go to work, go get the truck or whatever, and sometimes I'd come back and cut it off. I'd have panelists talking, Shadow Hawk talking with Doc Blaylock or somebody, and then I'd come back. Sometimes I'd be here, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd just leave it running. But yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I've tried a few things over the years.
So unfortunately, I've been hanging out. I've been having a blast, but I'm supposed to be on somebody else's show at 7:30. So
okay,
I'm not the main guest. I don't believe so. I'm not like being rude.
Hey, grab
but, I do have to. Yeah, I do have to go. So I appreciate. Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Thank you, Aaron.
And
nice
nice meeting you, Mark. Good seeing you,
Anytime you want to come on, just let me know.
Oh, I know, and I appreciate
work
that.
in again.
So, right on. Good luck, Mark, and I'll see you guys around.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, there you go. You got at least he learned what Star Trek was about. He didn't know about.
Yeah, and I learned about Immortal Rising.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I love about going over to different channels or having different guests on, is you got the cross-pollination going on, right? I mean, we've got at least 20 people watching right now. I think
wow.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming to the 900th episode. In January, we'll be hitting 1,000.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! I'd have to get next year's calendar out to tell you exactly when. It's down here. We got actually, I think this is 2023. This is my old one. That didn't work. Everything goes as planned on the 4 o'clock shadow. It's nuts.
What plan?
Yeah, what plan? Who needs a plan? I deal with emotional damage every day. That's why I let Mark on.
Emotional damage.
I wonder. Flip City says, I wondered here because Aaron was streaming it. Hoot.
Woot.
Woot.
Oh, he was simulcasting.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Cool beans. Cool beans.
Yeah. Very cool beans. Yes.
Yeah.
And I sub to your channel, Flip City. If anybody wants to subscribe to his YouTube channel, he's got up a lot of content. The link is in the chat. I dropped it earlier. Mike Walters, thank you, sir. When done here, feel free to come get a nightly dose of a niche news tonight at 6 p.m. Well, let's just say 9 p.m. Eastern on the mic stand. Yeah.
Okay.
He does pretty much daily too. He might take a day or two off, but he does it just about every day.
Yeah.
And talks about a range of things.
When I'm finally done with the Doomsday Machine, I want to try to do some like little quick things to put on my channel because it's just impossible. I don't want to spoil the movie too much, so I'm trying to like not show very much of it.
If you just did like a theme and you did something like this where we just talk like Star Trek for an hour, if we talk something else, just something you're interested in talking about that day, and you had somebody on that you knew you could play off and really talk about some things. I mean, right there's content. I mean, that would be interesting to somebody, I guarantee you.
I wonder if I could steal Shadowhawk. And
I don't know. Roland Mann was wanting you to do some stuff with him. Whatever happened to that?
Well, I had talked to Roland about the next time he's got one of his Silverline things to come on my channel and talk about it, because I thought it would just be fun to catch up with Roland. But
now, what is the Roland Mann connection? Who does Silverline?
So back in, oh gosh, I don't remember how long ago. Maybe the end of the 80s or early 90s. A friend of mine and I were trying to get
He made it sound like BC or AD. What the hell?
It may as well be. But so we had actually, there was a local publisher in our town that did like a little magazine or something. And so we went to them to see about maybe getting a book that we were working on published. And they went ahead and they solicited it through some of the distributors, but we have no idea what it did because they just disappeared overnight. We literally went to their offices and they were closed. We never heard from them again. So it was a guy named Rob Snell who ran the local comic shop. And he said, well, there's this guy who just is back in town. This is in Starkville, Mississippi. He said he worked for, well, it would have been Marvel, but it was Malibu or maybe this was before he went out to California. I don't remember. But so we went and talked to Roland a little bit about what was involved in self-publishing. And he explained what we did. So we self-published a couple of comics in 94. Then I guess it was around 98. Roland was back in town, and I had a bug to get out of doing the web was relatively new at that point.
Very
and Roland was like, let's start a company. And Mississippi State University, Mississippi State University had a like an incubator program for technology companies. And if you got accepted into it, you basically could get cheap office space. You had access to the internet. You had resources, like there was a secretary that you could, hire per hour or whatever you need.
Well, he already had a resume at this point, didn't he? Because he was an editor at Malibu Comics.
Right. This is right at the point where
Image
Marvel bought them. Yeah, Marvel bought them and fired everybody. So Roland had come back from California at this point. And so I said, well, heck, let's do it. We'll do web pages and that kind of stuff. So briefly, Roland and I were in business together. And at the time, I was doing another self-published comic, and I think Roland kind of got excited about it again and started doing some Silverline stuff. In fact, I just recently came across one of the logos that was it Leonard Kirk was one of his artists who went and did some stuff afterwards, and he had done a thing, and I had the little board that he had drawn the logo on, and I sent it
the artist
to
that
Roland.
really caught my eye from Silverline Comic was the guy that did
Stephen Butler?
negation for Cross Gen Comics. He did that demon character. I've got those issues in there, as a matter of fact. Or
Yeah,
maybe
well,
down here by my feet. But
Yeah, you know, Roland, a guy named Mitch Bird and Stephen Butler started doing comics when they were in college.
here they go. I never can pronounce the guy's name, but I liked his stuff all the time, and I know I went to a convention and actually saw some of this stuff. This is through Adventure Comics, and there's the demon character right there.
Yeah.
There's a few bogs that he did back in the day. But here he is. Here's a better look at him. Demon Tails. He had like 3 tails.
Yes, and he came out of the Cat and Mouse comic.
Yeah, and very interesting looking character, like no one else, you know.
Yeah,
and recently he used this character in Fund My Comic campaign that he did.
Okay,
recently, so he brought the character back after all those years.
But yeah, that my thing was, I just thought it'd be fun for Roland and I to get together and talk about old times. So. But he's going to contact me when he has something to promote. So I did see Roland about, I guess it was probably around 2017, maybe.
Yeah.
I went down to Orlando and was at a convention that he was at.
1993, so that's about the time these came out through Adventure Comics.
Yeah, so that's when I met Roland the first time. It was around then, around 91, 92, somewhere in there. Then he went out to California, and then he had come back when we went into business. But yeah, Roland's a real nice guy. And in fact, when the company wasn't doing well, I was like, let's just end it so that we stay being friends. Let's not let
I think you've shown that in the
stuff
past. What was the character in the comic that you did? It wore a cape?
Oh, well, we did Mr. America. That was in 94, 95. And then the thing
talk about obscure comic.
Well, yeah.
I've never seen that one, and I look for that obscure stuff that's very rare and hard to find. In fact, if anybody's probably going to have an issue of that, it's probably Chuck Rosansky up in Mile High Comics, because he gets those obscure, hard to find, low print comics. You know, he buys them by the ton.
Yeah, I think we talked about that when we did because we self-published it through. We did Capital City and Diamond. This was before the
when I had my comic store,
apart.
there was no Diamond. There was only Capital City. And
but
when you think about how they distribute books, they do it pretty much the same. Diamond just adopted what Capital City did, you know.
Right. At the time, they were the 2 biggest, so those were the 2 we went with. But it was 5 foot. Nice.
See you, Flip.
Nice to see you. Flip's a man, by the way.
Flip's a man? Okay. I'll remember that. I'll equate it to Flip.
No, Christy.
No, a
Oh, a
ma'am.
ma'am. Okay.
It's Christy.
So I won't
Yeah,
let
that's
Flip.
why I keep saying hi, Christy.
All right.
But Drex, I'm going to say congratulations again. Proud of you for making 900.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I
Well, you were a
might
big
have a
part of
stream
that.
I have to do as well. So
Okay.
and
It's good to
get
see
me a
everybody
Alright, man.
streaming. You know, they accuse
yeah.
me, but they got to go off to other streams. Got
But
Oh,
love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay. No need to
Bye.
bye,
threaten me.
Vanna. Nice to meet you.
You too, Mark.
Love you, Fanta. Bye.
Bye.
Love
She
you.
Rick's
usually
been
says
going for almost
bye.
4.
Say
He's been
bye
going for
for us.
almost 4 hours.
Oh, she didn't say bye. She usually goes bye in a very sweet voice. What were you saying, Mark? I'm sorry.
I was saying we've been going for almost 4 hours.
So we got 10 minutes
So-
to go.
Damn.
That's all that means. He's like, damn, my bladder can't hold that long.
I'm amazed. I'm more amazed that I haven't passed out because I didn't eat dinner.
Because I mean, it's like, hey, by the way, Rex, and his forehead hits the hutch.
Oh, I've got to go to the dentist tomorrow.
Well, I can't wait till the second. Get with me on the launch of your the second chance.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
I will. I've got to get it up soon. I just need to decide. I think I'm going to, at some point, I'm just going to give up and just put up the pitch video I have. The problem with this kind of stuff is that you can make it too difficult. You can you can get in there and
well, now you're in your own little head and world. I mean, I know you got a few people helping you, like you said, with the sound and stuff right now, but
right, yeah,
it's pretty much all on you to get this animated and get it out, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I was just thinking about that when Aaron was talking about getting an artist for his book and stuff. It's so
Wraith
hard.
of God? You talking Aaron Lepresti? Or no, you're talking Immortal Rising that was on here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There's more than one Aaron out there, just saying.
Well, yeah, but there was only one on the show. So
okay, yeah, but my memory doesn't go back that far. How do you think I did 900 episodes without going blah, 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 blah? Crazy.
But that's a heck of a thing to get somebody to spend that much time and care enough. I mean, paying them is obviously part of it, but still, you were saying like how people will just kind of disappear and fade away.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize how much work it actually is. And if you don't really want to do it, if you're not really invested in what you're doing, it's hard. It's hard. It's even with what I'm doing is obviously I'm doing something that I love and something that I enjoy, but there's still a lot of it that's just work. You just have to get these things done, and it's not all fun. But I can't imagine going to somebody else and trying to get them to do half as much work as I'm doing.
I equated it, and especially your animation is much like this. It's like these filmmakers. I like film and studying them and the commentaries and things like that. That's where I really learn the behind the scenes stuff. But I can't imagine doing a movie and editing and re-editing and going back to it.
Yeah.
And making it the best it can and cutting it down and and
well,
by
look,
then by then I was like, just put the thing out there. I'm sick of seeing it, I mean, I really would be.
I'm not doing Citizen Kane here. I'm doing a funny puppet parody, but yeah, I mean, you do want it to come out. Well, I mean, here's the terrifying thing is I'm by myself putting this together, and then at a certain point, I have to show it to other people and strangers,
right?
Who aren't going to take my feelings into consideration when they see it. So I've lined up this premiere at this convention, and I think this is perfect. I've got a Star Trek convention. I get to show it at it or whatever, and at the same time, I'm absolutely terrified.
Well, I mean, now you better have copies of your other 2 previous episodes and stuff ready to merchandise and take. You might want to get a table and get a friend to go with you to watch the table while you're doing your presentation. Then go back and sell the hell out of it, because I think this thing's going to take off like a rocket for the Star Trek crowd. Because
it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah,
I will say
not everybody looks at these Indiegogo things. It gets, and there's a lot of projects out there. So you're reaching another audience. You could do as much or more than what you've done on Indiegogo at one of these conventions if it has a good turnout.
there's an enormous number of people who do Star Trek fan films, and
exactly.
you know, there's a community that watches them and is aware of them. But the vast majority of Star Trek fans, I don't think have ever heard of these fan films.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying is that, and I guarantee you, even after that, they're going to go home and they're going to tell their other Star Trek friends that didn't go to the convention about this, and they're going to go, "That's neat. I want that." Because I think with Star Trek people, it's like a completist. I was telling you, I've got all of Deep Space Nine and all of Enterprise and all of Voyager. I just need some, I think 3 seasons of Picard, you know, of Next Generation. But other than that, I've got the animated, I've got the original, I've got all that stuff, you know, and even Upper Deck, I think the first season of that. And Orville, you know, which isn't really Star Trek, but it is kind of Star Trek-y, you know.
Right.
Better
yeah,
than
it's
current Star Trek.
but it's
really.
it's so I took City on the Edge of Foreclosure to this film festival in New Jersey. I entered a bunch of film festivals. That was kind of fun, but I didn't go
in New Jersey
to any of them. So it was they call it the Smodcastle Film Fest, and it was Kevin Smith, the guy from Clerks, bought the theater in his hometown, and so he had a film festival. Well, they do it each year, but this was the first year that they did it. And I remember I told my sister, I was like, I'm entering this film festival. There's no chance that I'm getting into it, but I just think it would be cool to do. And to my great surprise, it got in. I didn't get nominated for anything. It wasn't up for any
So you had to
award.
fly from Texas to New Jersey for that, right?
So I went up to New Jersey for it, and I was all excited about it. It was fun to do, but then there came the point where they're going to show my film, and this is one of those things that I have my humility, because it was basically on the last day and the last screening kind of thing. So, but you go in, it's an actual movie theater. So you go into one of the theater things. And it was packed. And I was like, I wasn't really expecting there to be a lot of people there. And they show a block of films because they're short. So you're intermixed in with a bunch of films. So most of the people, I think, in the audience, their movie is probably one of them. You know, I don't know how much of the crowd is just coming to the film festival, but whatever the case is, it was crowded. And my sister went too. She's a big Kevin Smith fan. She was very excited about getting to do it. And as it started to get closer, I really wanted to just run. I wanted to pretend to go to the bathroom or something. I didn't want to be there when people didn't laugh.
Yeah.
And that was just it. Even though they don't know who I am, I'm basically still anonymous in the audience. I just knew how humiliating it was going to be if they didn't laugh. And I think partly because the way they programmed it, there were some funny movies before mine. But as soon as the puppets popped up on screen, people laughed. And they laughed all the way through at the spots that they were supposed to laugh at, and applauded at the end and stuff. And so it was awesome. Wow, this is great. Yeah. But and this I'm going to be showing it to a group of Star Trek fans. So obviously they should
in Dallas, right? So you're going to have a big audience in Dallas, I would think.
Possibly.
I mean, what have you looked it up online to see what kind of an audience, or is because they do this thing yearly, right? Or
no, this is the first time they've done it. This is the first time for a longest time, Creation, the outfit that does the convention, it was only doing it in Vegas. They did the Vegas convention once a year. And then just starting this year, they started these regional ones, like, Trek to Chicago, Trek to New Jersey, Trek to San Francisco or whatever. And so this one in Dallas is the first one that they're doing. It's in a smaller.
I guarantee you Trekkies are flying in for this. I mean,
It's possible.
They follow. They go to Vegas. They go to where the action is, and they like, and especially the cosplayers.
Right? So, yeah, I do think there'll be a core group that does it, but at the same time, these are this is almost the same show that they did, 2 weeks ago in Chicago or something. They're using basically the same guests. That they're just using the same format. But no, I was in contact with them about what day it might be, and they're saying it's probably going to be Friday at 5:00, which would be at the end of the day of the programming. They only have one stage, so all of the programming is on the same thing. And my first thought was, what if people get up and leave because they're like, I can leave early because I don't care about this thing. But I'm sure it'll be fine. But
I love that you run these scenarios of doom in your.
I do. Head. That's all I do. Yeah, I'm very introverted, so all of this stuff is just happening inside my head. And but yeah, that's the thing is and that's why I kind of hate it when you see people online who kind of go after some of these films and stuff, and maybe even the comics too. Is nobody's doing this hoping to ruin your day. They're putting out this thing because for whatever reason they want to make this thing, and they're putting it out there, and it's tough to put something out there where people can criticize you and say, and especially on YouTube where they can leave. I think we talked about one of the comments for City on the Edge of Foreclosure was something like getting colon cancer is more fun than watching this movie or something like that.
Ouch.
But I don't know. For me, like I said, I'm very introverted. I don't seek out attention. So
that's
putting
all
this out
I
there.
do. So we make a good combo.
But in a way, I can kind of do funny stuff because the puppets are doing it for me. It's not me on screen.
I saw the hand. No hands were harmed in the making of this film.
I thought this would be a fun way to start your.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, Salacious Rum from the UK comes on as his puppet persona.
Does he? Okay.
He just stays he's got different puppets that he uses. But that's his. Yeah, he never comes on really. You see his arms and his hands and stuff, but you never see his face. He
I thought about
an avatar.
I thought about trying to do it for a long period of time, but I realized my arm would get tired if I was holding it up.
It's like 4 hours. When are we going to do this? Well, you say the magic words and hang on, Mark. Don't run off, and I will show you the only second person since you were kind of what do they call that, ipso facto or whatever by default sort of co-host today. So I will show you the finished Jimmy Reyes cover.
Oh, okay. I do want to see it, and I will not say
you backed it,
but I'll get him to say it.
Okay. All right. Let me embiggen. And what's his name, by the way?
I don't know. He does have a name, but I don't remember what it was.
I don't remember his name. He's Clint Eastwood. Like said, he's the man with no name.
Keep collecting.
Don't do it. We love you.